How you doing, Joe? You know, not still not perfect.
Wes, we're on.
We're ready?
Yes.
You guys ready? Call John back into the game.
Yeah.
Rachel, we're ready.
All right. Okay. Thanks. We're ready to call this July 12th Madison County Planning Commission meeting to order. We're going to start out with a prayer.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and meet in a free country. We thank you for the sunshine and the weather that you provide us. We ask that you grant us the wisdom to make the best decisions for our county, and that you bless us all as we go forward from this room today and go about our daily lives. In his name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right. Will everybody stand for the pledge, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, we have been asked to amend the agenda.
Or we can put it under miscellaneous. Basically, just to get an update on those parts.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was planning on doing that anyway.
Okay. So,
Entertain a motion to amend the agenda would be appropriate.
Motion to amend the agenda, add whose parts of miscellaneous for update.
I'll second that. A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passes. Thanks. Okay. The June 14th board minutes.
Roll call.
Oh, that's right. We'll do roll call.
All right.
I got ahead of myself.
Mark Gary,
Here.
Denise Spooner,
Here.
Jerry Alexander, Lindsey Brown,
Here.
Tom Shepard,
Here.
John Richwine,
Here.
John Zimmerman, Corey Bonander,
Here.
and Wesley.
Here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got out of order a little bit. Okay, now we go to the board minutes from June 14th.
Okay, I have to let you guys know they are not ready. There was questions that I need to meet with Rachel on, so those will not be voted on today.
You just want to skip that one too?
Yes,
Okay.
I asked to have that ready.
Thanks. We'll do that next week.
All right,
New business.
new business. First petition is 2022-Z-005. This is a application to rezone a property at 4719 West, 900 South in the Pendleton area. This is in Fall Creek Township. The petitioner is Nutrition 101 Incorporated and JCP Farms LLC. They're requesting, there are actually two parcels over there. One is currently zoned agriculture. The other one is zoned single-family residential and R2 zoning. All right, so in reviewing our zoning petitions, or rezoning petitions, there are 5 things that the Plan Commission must consider. So I'm just going to review that with you so you have that in mind as I'm giving my staff report. So we should be looking at the Madison County Comprehensive Plan and any other applicable adopted planning studies or reports, the current conditions and the character of the current structures and uses in each district, the most desirable use of which the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout Madison County, and responsible growth and development. So my staff findings, looking at this petition, it's been included in your meeting packets. They filed appropriately. I've had lots of conversations with Corey Peter over the past couple months. The subject property contains a total of 6 parcels that equal about 261 acres. Again, they're currently zoned ag and R2 single-family residential. On one of the parcels, there's an existing industrial facility that converts dairy and food byproducts into livestock feed, biofuels, and recyclable commodities. They've been a great neighbor in the Madison County community. When I was working down in Pendleton, they were just very quiet, and I don't think I ever crossed paths with them when I was down there, which was kind of surprising. So, I mean, I know not in town, but it was very quiet neighbors. The site is bordered by State Road 9 to the east, State Road 67 to the northwest, and it's transected by County Road 900 south. Adjacent land to the west and northwest across State Road 67 is zoned institutional. It's the Pendleton Correctional Facility. The adjacent land to the south and east are zoned ag, and to the north is also R2. This site is kind of unique, especially I think what brought this kind of to light was there was that triangle piece that was adjacent to State Road 67, and we currently have that zoned, of course, as R2, so single-family residential. It's in my opinion, just a weird spot to be zoned residential. You know, you have this industrial-type facility to the south, you have the Pendleton Correctional Facility kind of surrounding it. You know, my personal opinion is I don't necessarily think we want housing to go there. It's just maybe not so much. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you're going to look over the Pendleton Correctional Facility, which it is a lovely facility. I mean, it's a very cool 1920 structure. However, I don't quite think that that's where we would want housing. So I'm not sure if this was, you know, just something that when we redid our zoning map many years ago, if that was just a small oversight, which we catch errors like that quite often when we're looking at different parcels within the county where we're like, why did we zone it this way? I really do think that this site really lends itself more to an industrial site. You know, if we are going to have any type of development, I think that would be the most appropriate type of development there. I did, along the way, speak with the town of Pendleton about it. This is in their electric territory. They were supportive when I spoke with them, you know, with this being in their electric territory, having it zoned industrial. It just makes the site a better user for them. So let me go over the 2 zoning districts that we'll be talking, or the 3 zoning districts that we're talking about. So the current site where Nutrition 101 is located is zoned agriculture. This site was granted a special use. I'm not for certain what year it was granted, but that is why they're out there and why they're operating the way they are. The ag zoning district is to provide a land use category for ag activities. The provisions that regulate this land use district should protect, promote, and maintain areas of Madison County, primarily for farming operations. So what we're proposing is to transition that to light industrial. The light industrial zoning district, if you look at the permitted uses, it's really, in my opinion, more in line with what the use currently is out there. And then if we combine that with that residential transitioning over to industrial as well, I think it just provides for a more cohesive site and is more appropriate for what that future use should be. My staff recommendation is to approve this. Like I said, Town of Pendleton is supportive. I think we've had a couple of emails that have come in that are remonstrators that have been included in your packet, but really not a lot. I think that overall they've been very good neighbors. Mr. Peter has been excellent to work with throughout the process. He has told me that currently he has no plans to develop the site whatsoever. It's more just getting things in line to really protect him and his investment. So, do you guys have any questions on my staff report? Obviously, if you guys decide to approve this today, all future development on the site would be held to those light industrial development standards that are laid out in the Madison County Land Use and Development Code. If there's no questions for me, I will turn it over to Mr. Peter or his attorney. Okay.
Rachel, just real quick,
Yes.
kind of go through that light industrial zoning for everybody so
Sure.
they could more fully understand what type of businesses could be located.
Sure. So light industrial, this is to provide a land use category for assembly, warehousing, and other light industrial operations. It says in our land use and development code that provisions that regulate this land use district should make the district compatible with the general commercial, highway commercial, and agricultural zoning districts in environmentally sensitive areas. The district should be used in combination with the highway commercial district in areas with convenient access to major transportation routes. So with this being along State Road 67, that State Road 67 does lend itself to have highway commercial zoning districts along that corridor. Currently, I would say there is a lot of residential subdivisions that are kind of creeping up along that State Road 67 corridor. So if you look at Fortville and Ingalls, you know, we have Prairie Hollow, there's Windstone, there's been some interest in other subdivisions along that corridor. So it really would, today, if a developer came to us and had bought that parcel or was looking to buy that parcel and Mr. Peters at this point was willing to sell that parcel, as long as that developer checked all the boxes on that in our subdivision control ordinance, a subdivision, you guys would have to say yes to it. You know, legally you would have to say yes to it because if it meets all the check boxes, you have to approve it. So, you know, that's something for you guys to keep in mind too. Like with that current zoning right there, would you like housing there? You may. And my recommendation would be not so much. So I think with the area with highway, you know, State Road 67 being there, that again, it lends itself to that highway commercial, light industrial, or general commercial. I think too that as we look at that corridor, we wouldn't want general commercial to be too spread out on the State Road 67 area. I mean, we have a commercial node in Ingalls right now. There's the Dollar General and some other businesses that are happening there. You look at the Fortville area and they have, you know, some commercial within their in-town area. And then we also have Pendleton that has their commercial node where Needler's is located and the Arby's and not Arby's, Wendy's and Hardee's. So, you know, if we spread out too much commercial throughout that corridor, I think it's going to start looking really messy, and I think we should be mindful of how that corridor does develop. And again, I think that's why I'm supportive of that industrial zoning, the light industrial zoning, not a heavy industrial by any means, but just with the uses that are surrounding that parcel. Unless it remained ag, I just don't know what else we would do for that parcel. Does that make sense? All right. Any other questions? Does that answer your question? I know it was very long-winded. I heard a chuckle out there from someone, so. Okay, I'll turn it over to the petitioner. And petitioners, please make sure that you sign in and give your address when you come up, please.
Good morning, Plan Commission. Thank you, Rachel. My name is Kyle Ressa-Teretz. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Denton's, Bingham, Greenbaum in Indianapolis, 2700 Market Tower, 10 West Market Street. As Rachel mentioned, I'm joined by Corey Peter, the president of Nutrition 101 and the sole owner of JCP Farms. So certainly appreciate the in-depth review that Rachel reviewed this morning already, covered really the high points of the petition, but hopefully we can provide some more color and certainly answer any questions that you might have. Just by way of summary, there are 6 total parcels. 5 of them are currently owned by Nutrition 101. 1 of them is owned by JCP Farms. They are sandwiched nicely between State Road 67 and State Road 9. There's 1 parcel on the north side of County Road 900 South, and then 5 to the south. As Rachel mentioned, there are currently no development plans. Corey doesn't have development plans for the site in general, but instead that this petition is in an effort to find the most harmonious land use of these parcels. We would agree with staff that the historical designation of certainly the northernmost parcel being R2 was perhaps a gap or an oversight, or just something that naturally occurred over time, and particularly due to the significant development across State Road 67 and the Pendleton Correctional Facility. We think a light industrial use for these 6 parcels would be that most harmonious use, particularly to create a nice buffer zone between the limited residential to the east and then the significant institutional use to the west as well. In an effort to have sort of a most comprehensive petition this morning is why we included all 6 parcels. You might ask, well, there's only that one that's zoned R2. Isn't that really the one, the ticket item that serves best to be rezoned? And we don't disagree with that, but in an effort to have all of the either JCP and N101 property be zoned consistently, we wanted to submit this petition all together. The entities are related. JCP Farms essentially is a land holding entity used by Corey. As Rachel noted, 2 of the parcels are used by 101 Inc. currently for their light industrial use. In 2010, the company received a special use permit for that. No interest in changing, modifying, altering, expanding those operations or changing that use. But again, in an effort to sort of just have a comprehensive reevaluation of the zoning here, we thought best to rezone to a light industrial use that would be, where the 101 Inc. use would be a permitted use. And so it's currently legal non-conforming. This would put it into the legal conforming use. Corey can speak a little bit to the conversations that he's had with his neighbors. To my understanding, all of those have been positive. Many of them have just been asking questions about, they see the notice or the orange sign and ask what's going on. I think those have been productive conversations in light of him being he and his operation being really positive, quiet, thoughtful neighbors for years now. I think many of his neighbors are very trusting and knowledgeable of his plans for the real estate, and so we certainly appreciate the support that his neighbors have given to date. So I'll leave it at that and offer Corey a few minutes to share his thoughts, and then open to any questions you might have. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure what else I need to say after both of those. Corey Peter, president and owner of Nutrition 101. Met multiple of you a couple of times in the past, starting 10 years ago. So, I think they've summarized well all the parcels and the high level reasoning for it. I think that consistent with what they have said, as I look at the area surrounding us, there's certainly a part of me that's very happy that we've been able to exist and grow at the site where we located 10 years ago. I went back and looked at our initial special use exemption with, I think the planning commission guy was a guy named Corey Wilson or something a long time ago, but I think we had estimated we were going to have maybe 3 or 5 or 7 employees, and I think we've grown a little bit beyond that, and I think that's good. Yet at the same time, we do have equipment, and we do have trucks, and we've endeavored to ensure that our neighbors, which there are on 900 South, there are 5 or 7 houses that we know and talk to, and try to make sure that we can coexist as well as possible. But from a long-term perspective, I really struggle to see the parcels as a residential use. We have board meetings and customer meetings today where 50 cal guns are going off at the gun range next door. I think that was not part of the staff report yet, was that we've got the state police post next to us with the gun range. So we've got a gun range on one side and a prison on another side, and 2 state roads in between us. And to me, That just, it seems very clear to me that that should be a light industrial use long-term. And certainly, as Kyle said, from a conversation perspective, I've had good conversations with our neighbors. There may be some remonstrators that I haven't talked to or haven't contacted me, but I haven't had any of those conversations. And welcome questions from you guys and discussion on the proposal. You gotta sign in too. Otherwise Rachel will be in trouble.
Do you have anybody else against it?
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
So what is it that you see proposed to build there? What is your ideal use of this land?
Yeah, so we're not proposing to build anything today. And from a long-term perspective, I can't tell you the pace of growth of the town of Pendleton and, you know, where and at what pace developing businesses and stuff will move. But I do think, you know, again, I don't know if it's 10 years from now. You know, I would love to farm it for as long as I can. But I think there will come a time when tractors, you know, going up and down some of that space is going to stick out pretty bad. And, you know, I think if, you know, if it's 10 years from now, if it's 20 years from now, I think the light industrial use, you know, whether it be some quiet distributors of brake parts or whatever the case might be, seems to me to fit the best. And, you know, for all of the residential that's going up in the county and certainly around us down in Pendleton, you know, they're going to need some lawn care businesses and stuff like that to support those homes. And so I think that's, you know, my best, you know, 10 or 20 year outlook. But it definitely, I just, you know, it definitely should not be heavy industrial and it definitely should not be residential. After that, I think the light industrial use permits the most flexibility, you know, for both the Plan Commission and, you know, to move and flex with what goes in there, if anything ever, but that's kind of how I feel.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, I mean, it's not for expansion. You don't need
No.
260 acres for
No,
for
we
one
are-
line. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's to get it rezoned for
Correct,
future
correct,
uses and
correct.
investment.
We are in good shape. We don't need anything today, and the concentration of the one-on-one facilities, if any expansion were to ever happen there, which our last one was 2015, and we are expanding in other geographic territories. So we have a facility in North Carolina, we have a facility in Georgia, we're looking at a facility in New York. We do not need any additional macro space, you know, within this parcel of what's proposed. And if we did, it would most likely be in addition to the existing building in that same footprint and entrance, if you will.
Yeah, just to add to that, to your point, 260 acres total. If there's an expansion of the real estate, there's still 100 acres of buffer between either of the state roads on the east or the west. And then to add to Corey's point in response to your question, and to echo Rachel, any plans to develop this real estate, we certainly recognize would require a development plan and consistency with the comprehensive plan and the other development standards set forth in the ordinance. But, you know, that's so far down the line at this point. We haven't entertained specific development, but instead worked with Rachel and other staff members to identify light industrial as the best designation to afford future long-term development to the extent that it does present itself.
The only other thing I would add too is that I think, you know, from a very long-term perspective, you know, if the site were to be developed and if the Plan Commission did approve, you know, a site plan, it would allow us to, you know, when we first came here in 2010, we had 100 acres, which the only access to the 100 acres was 900 South. And so that puts our trucks on 900 South. If, you know, since then we've acquired the 100 acres to our east, and therefore if we did do a site development plan long-term, you know, we could direct traffic out to a state road and get it off of 900, which would benefit the 5 or 7 homes that are on 900. So, you know, in a long-term plan, I think that would work better. But again, whether that's 10 or 20, I don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Up here?
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this?
Just a reminder, oh, hey Neil, sorry. If you have public input, we want to make sure that you sign in on the sign-in sheet and state your name and your address, please.
Good morning. Let me sign in real quick. My name is Randy McVeigh. I work, excuse me, I work for Ingalls Water Company. The proposed area by Nutrition 101, I think it's a great site. The problem that Ingalls has is we've got 4 wells that are located right next to that site, which supply water to the town of Ingalls, the Penal Correctional Facility, the Juvenile Correctional Facility, and Correctional Industrial Facility. So that area is within our wellhead protection area. We would ask that even though it's going to be, if you choose to rezone it commercial or light ag or whatever you're going to, or light industrial, whatever you're going to rezone it to, that we would be included in the in any proposals or any improvements to that site, so that they don't create an issue that would that would cause possible contamination of the water supply for any of those facilities and for the town of Ingalls. Actually, that our primary well field is right there, right by the Nutrition 101. We're behind the Juvenile Correctional Facility. If you look at your map, I believe they provided you with a map of the area. Yeah. So, trying to find the juvenile center.
Correctional facility, there are 2 pond-looking things, and that is where Ingalls.
Yeah.
There's 101.
Yeah, we're right kind of catty corner behind their property on the southwest side of the property, behind the juvie center. So we would just ask that there be some consideration taken to the wellhead protection plan that I believe has been filed with the county. That's our only concern, is we just don't want something that's going to go in that would affect the water supply for the town and for all 3 of the state facility. Well, it's actually 4, because we do the state police post too. So I don't think the prison would appreciate that much. So Nutrition 101's been a great partner for us. We've not had any issues with them. They've been, I mean, we don't supply them with water, but they are within our area. We work really close with Nutrition 101 over the years. They've been really good partners with us, but we would caution that there are some potential contamination issues with the water supply. So that's what we would ask that you take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, come on up.
Morning. How are you?
My name's Dan Taylor, and I live on 957, which is east of State Road 9, and there's a farm ground that separates my property from State Road 9 and the facility. And when they built that, it wasn't too bad in the beginning, and then as they started to farm it, they took out the fence rows between State Road 9 and the Pendleton Police Post. Then they cut the woods back to make more room for their semi-tractor trailer parking. So now, in the evenings, I've got a beautiful view of all the lighting from the juvenile detention center, the state police post, and all of their semi-tractor trailers and their lighting, with no consideration for, the area east of 9. If this gets rezoned to a light commercial, and I understood the residential part of it, okay, but where do you draw the line at? If what he has done currently has made an impact on my property, not mentioning all the neighbors that live on 950, what's it going to be when they come in and they start developing, if they should, and start putting more well housing and more lighting in? That's just, to me, you're opening up an area that has been typically farm ground for years. My grandfather bought the property I live on in 1946, so I grew up out there, and I've watched it change. And the thought of it converting to an industrial circumstance just does not sound pleasing to me at all. And granted, residential housing is not a fantastic idea either. And it's like you mentioned, taking and opening up to State Road 9 for traffic coming off of the property. Well, yeah, that relieves the issue on 900, but then that just puts that much more out on 9. So at what point, there's a give and take there. And I'm not so sure. No plans to develop, but somebody comes along and offers the right amount of money, that could change in a short period of time. So, and some of the people here, you farm, you know what it is. So I don't know. It's something that has bothered me since I found out about it. And light commercial just does not sound pleasing to me, unless there are some restrictions or guidelines to help take that impact from the residents that are in that area. So,
Sir, he cut out some of the woods behind your house there. Is that what you
pardon?
He cut out some of that woods there.
Well, the property that he bought, there was an existing woods there that bordered the facility that he built, and it pretty well blocked, from my view, all of the facility. And then a couple years ago, you had to cut that back so you could make more room for trailer parking, which I totally understood. But when you did that, that just opened up that whole back of that. And I mean, it's like, to be a little sarcastic, at night when I look out my west window, I want to put sunglasses on because of the lighting that's coming from the detention center, and all that. You mentioned the 50 cal guns going off. Well, by removing the fence lines, not just you, but Reichenbach that owns the property to the west of me, that opened up all that sound travel from there. So that was increased, by then. And I totally understand the fence row thing with the farmers, but there are consequences, to what happens when you take out those fence rows. So I don't know. I think it's a legitimate concern, not just for me, but for the rest of my neighbors on 950. Thank you.
Okay. What room is that?
Okay, members of the board, Nutrition 101, Mr. Peters. I have lived at my address, 8937 South McRae Drive, for well over 15 years. And though Nutrition 101 has not reached out to any of my direct neighbors or asked how we felt about the situation at all, And this sounds a little boisterous and colorful, but this is actually how all of my neighbors feel. The area behind my house gave me growth to many happy memories, many of which I recall playing in my beautiful backyard. The thing that was so wonderful about our backyard was that it led directly to a field with a tree line meeting the horizon to block the correctional facility and the juvenile facility as well. The tree line and field gave way to many wondrous things, spotting native white-tailed deer grazing along the rows of corn, hawks circling in the area in search of their next meal, Queen's Anne lace dotting along our fence during the spring months, going out to the field in search of pieces of quartz, and seeing the sun set on the landscape that I've known for 15 years of my life. Seeing that kind of view every night, the small bit of natural escape I could get in this hectic world makes living here worthwhile in the country that we choose. However, this company wants to take away my childhood escape for their own financial gain. Although they say they have no means of building anything now, they obviously have some ideas in their head of what they want to do with it. Not only do they want to expand their business, these producers want to expand their own pockets as well by taking away the place that I love. But what about us, these small people who live here, who are just in the way of this mighty business? Well, they obviously must be cast aside, for they cost far less than the ensuring destruction of creating this engineering hellscape. Members of the zoning board, do you know what kind of destruction will follow this rezoning conundrum? Firstly, we must think of the environmental effects. These effects have been home to many native animals who are seeking refuge from their already strained lives due to the ever-growing threat of suburbia, which, as we know, it's suburban, which was zoned in the 1960s, as my house was built in the 1960s as well. These fields have protected mice, deer, rabbits, birds, and help our pollinators. Without these fields, the air quality will go down, especially with adding pollution of an industrial park. Not only that, but as this horrible factory gets built, runoff from the buildings could leach into our waterways and our local wells, which are on every house. Our water tables are already lowering due to the irrigation, and if the factory uses our water as well, it will lower the amount of water we have in our area, which is already draining. According to the U.S. Energy Information Association, a large building uses on average 22,000 gallons of water every year. That's 22,000 gallons of water per building tapping into our already lowered water table. Now tell me, with this added bonus of stealing and polluting our water, would you like to live in the area after this is rezoned? Well, we locals have about two options if this industrial park is built. Option 1 is to stay, and option 2 is to sell. And I'll dive into the downsides of both as well. Now, if we stay in this area where the fields and trees get torn down, we'll have an already existing view of State Road 9 and State Road 67 and the correctional facility. When the construction starts, our air quality will go down, which will affect those who are high at risk of respiratory issues, and I have a neighbor with COPD and many neighbors with asthma as well. And not only will our air quality go down, but our quality of life will go down as well. We will no longer gaze upon this beautiful scenery, which we moved out to the country for in the first place. Instead, we will look on with horror at this hideous factory, which will surround us in a chromium hell. We will also have more traffic in our area, which is heavy to begin with and destroys signs around our area with their semis. So why don't we sell our homes when many of us have been living in our homes for 10 plus years and we know this town and this area fairly well and our families are close. Not only that, but selling a house next to an industrial park will bring down the closing costs because obviously no one wants to live next to this. So members of the board, I ardently urge you not to rezone this area. We love it the way it is, and expanding it will have extremely harmful effects upon this strong and thriving community. If any of you care about the sanctity of family life and the importance of neighborly connections, I urge you not to rezone this area. For once, be in favor of the little people, not in favor of giant corporations. And if not do it for the people, do it for the already diminishing native ecosystem of Indiana. These animals who used to live in this land of plenty, with no room for hesitation, that were forced to seek refuge elsewhere with the impending grip of industrialization. Think about those it is affecting and how our lives will forever be changed by this horrible situation. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Rachel, could you show on the map where they're located in those wells?
Okay, thank you. Stacy, if you can click off of if you can see that's the parcel, one of the parcels that we're talking about, that's the one that's zoned residential, and then Nutrition 101 is right where her mouse is hovering. The wellhead area for Ingalls, Stacy, if you see the the correctional facility that's on the south side of the road, right there, now go south, directly south. There's two like water spots there. That's Ingalls, and then Pendleton has their water facility office. Let me go point it out real quick. Sorry. Pendleton's water is in this area. Yep, municipal water utility. So I'd like to also point out and give you a little bit more context on the site. So we do have the Pendleton Correctional Facility to the north. Stacy, can you turn on the zoning for us too?
Yes.
So you can see that where Stacy has the parcel highlighted to the north is the one that is zoned residential. Nutrition 101 is just south of that. Town of Pendleton is the area that is not colorful right now. It's just the aerial map. Hunsinger Farms is the newer subdivision that is shown up in the, right there. That's Hunsinger Farms. They have an additional 750 homes that are being constructed in that area. Likely, if Pendleton were to annex south, likely this area would all be residential. So Candlewood is the subdivision that's to the south, I believe. And anything further than that, I think would all end up turning into residential if Pendleton does annex further south. I think that State Road 9 is a natural buffer between where this industrial zoning could be into the residential. There's obviously already existing residential at Hunsinger and the neighborhood that's just south of that. So I really don't foresee any other industrial going further to the east. Like, I really think State Road 9 would be that hard cutoff there. If this were to develop, Corey did mention that they are on well right now. And I think moving forward, it is likely that there would be a requirement for this site to go on municipal water, which would then end up being Town of Pendleton or Town of Ingalls. But looking at where Pendleton's boundary is right now versus where Ingalls' boundary is, it's more likely that this would be annexed into the Town of Pendleton, not the Town of Ingalls. So I would say keep those things in mind as you're looking at this. Another thing to mention is that the Nutrition 101 site already has its special use granted. It's an active site. It's not that anything new is being constructed where they currently exist. This is actually happening and on the ground right now. So for it already has this use that you guys would be approving today anyway. And then just to that north, like we've talked about, that residential zoning district there is really not super appropriate. I would also like to point out that it is unlikely that any industrial site would be getting a curb cut off of State Road 67 in this area. It is way more likely that they would be required to go south on State Road 9 and access their site from 650. NDOT has been looking at the intersection of State Road 67 and State Road 9 for many, many years about how to reconfigure that area. It's difficult because of the railroad tracks. However, they do own land there already, so it is likely that that intersection will be reconstructed at some point that would offer better access to these parcels. So State Road 9 is also obviously a state road. It's very appropriate for trucks to be traveling it. When Hunsinger Farms went in, there was a traffic study done where the new driveway, they did get a driveway cut off of State Road 9 for their new entrance into their subdivision, and they were required by NDOT to put in passing blisters. So if there were an industrial development to be going in, that is something that the board, if it is staying in Madison County, that we would require them to do some type of traffic study and then do the appropriate improvements to handle whatever traffic was being projected for the site. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
question?
Just to remind the commission that you have an advisory role in this. You are making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. It can be a positive recommendation, a neutral recommendation, or a favorable recommendation, neutral or unfavorable. And then ultimately the Board of Commissioners, as early as next Tuesday, could take this up on the ordinance. Wes, if I may, can I ask a couple more questions of the petitioner?
Mm-hmm.
Or your attorney, the one. A couple of things that have come up both on the road cut and on the wells. Would there be any appetite for a commitment that we could add potentially to a rezone with regard to either one of those issues about seeking? I think there's going to be protection from the wells from other entities, but if it makes it more palatable to the commissioners of this board to have it specifically as a commitment that you'll seek, you'll advise the town of Ingalls about their waterhead or their.
Yeah, so many of the comments that were brought up, all of the comments that were brought up were very thoughtful and certainly heard by Corey. All of them would be addressed at the development plan level. Certainly environmental impacts, curb cuts, water source, whether that might be other setbacks, berms, landscaping buffers. So we would certainly be willing at the time of submittal of that development plan to consider how best to address concerns of landowners, whether those might be landowners directly adjacent to the site or several fields away from the site. So I certainly want to entertain a request of the Plan Commission at this rezone stage, but we think that there might be a forum to do that at a later point rather than at the rezone stage. But happy to have that conversation if you feel like that's appropriate now.
Thank you. The commission would have the authority, if you would like, to impose reasonable conditions on the rezone. I mean, you can't make them stand on their head, so to speak, but you can put reasonable things in there, and a couple of things that got brought up, if you'd like. Don't take that as a recommendation, just reminding the Plan Commission of their authority here on their recommendation that eventually goes to the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think that any time zoning changes, it certainly raises blood pressures about the future, and I respect that and could not agree with it more. And I think, from a directional perspective, the most important thing for me is that we agree on what this should be if it ever needs to change or if it's ever gonna change. And so from that perspective, as we've seen the residential side circling in, yes, we've been approached. Yes, we could have sold it. We could have sold it and come to you and said, hey, make it houses. I don't think that's the best use. And so from my perspective, as we look forward to how this area develops, I think it's important to get this on the table that we don't want this to be houses. And if anything, it should follow with what we're currently doing today, such that what we're doing today doesn't become a problem for somebody in the future. Because we've been doing it well, I think that many have attested to. And so keeping that in line with what we're doing for these parcels is really, from my perspective, why we're here.
I did just pull up our development standards for light industrial, and it does require a connection to water, not municipal water, but water and sewer. So they could not be on a well if anyone were to develop this further. So they really would have, unfortunately, your hands tied until you likely got annexed into the town of Pendleton, and then the development standards that Pendleton has is actually the one that would be developing this site. Because I know that the policy right now in Pendleton is that they will not annex or they will not extend water into any areas that are not within their town boundaries. So I guess consider that as well.
Sir, did we answer your
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Rachel, can I clarify, the special use is just on the parcel where Nutrition 101 resides, or is it on this entire?
It is on the southern parcels. Yeah. But the one that is highlighted with the green right now, it does not have the special use attached to it.
So the special use is on both southern parcels, correct?
The southern ones, yes.
And if this were to go light industrial, and that is a permitted use, then notice doesn't necessarily go out to any neighbors in the future on a development there, or?
I don't believe that's how your ordinance is written. I think for site development, it is not a legislative act. I think it is a administrative act. So it would be reviewed by staff, and if there were any variances or waivers that were needed, then those would be advertised.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if not, there is none, correct?
If not, there is none. However, it is unlikely that this would develop right now because there is no access to water, and our requirement would not allow that to happen.
Correct.
So then, if it were annexed into Pendleton, it would follow Pendleton's ordinance and the rules for advertising, which I don't know what those are.
Right, okay.
I figured, I mean, I think the past ordinance in Pendleton, it would require a site development plan, and that would have been advertised, but it has been changed, so it wouldn't be advertised unless it was a waiver or a variance.
Does the county zoning have any impact on a parcel depending on how it's zoned if it does get annexed?
Yes. So whatever the zoning is in the county, when it's annexed into a municipality, they typically try to be consistent with what that zoning was in the county. So it's not always an apples to apples match, but it is something that's very similar. At least that's what Pendleton's policy was. That could be different for Town of Ingalls or other municipalities, but I think it usually makes sense to try to pick something that is complementary to what is the existing zoning district. Jeff, was that fairly accurate?
I think you said when it's not apples to apples, but it wouldn't behoove a municipality to bring in a property that is in a use, and you bring it in at a zoning classification that doesn't fit that use, because you would create an instantly grandfathered
non-conforming use,
and that's definitely disfavored by everybody. So it's extremely likely, although not strictly required, that an annexing municipality would bring in a property with their closest zoning classification that would match the existing one in the county.
Excuse me. And is that because Pendleton might not have a light industrial designation in there?
Yeah, well, I think they have two, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there's.
Right. So in that case, it would switch to what they found to be the most appropriate of their designations under their zoning ordinance.
Right.
Because they don't have a apples to apples light industrial designation, might not be exactly the same.
Or the uses that are allowed in their light industrial may not be the same uses that Madison County allows in our light industrial.
And so they might move that to a more restricted designation so that it's not expanded to what Madison County might term general industrial as opposed to light industrial.
Right. You would basically be giving Pendleton a recommendation on what this should be.
Any more discussion?
But in that sense, Rachel, if it's going to be developed, and the only way that they're going to get water is if Pendleton annexes it, is there any thought to just saying then Pendleton should decide what type of businesses are going to go there and the county should just defer?
I think that the county is, let me look up our R2 zoning district real quick.
Question on that.
So we-
Pendleton put it at, instead of light industrial, they put it at heavy industrial or whatever else. If we put it at light industrial, they have to go with what we say, am I right?
They don't have to go with what you say.
Okay, everything that's what it says?
R2 Single Family Residential also requires a connection to public water and sewer. So it's currently zoned R2, and that is a requirement, is that it has to be connected to public water. Again, that is Pendleton's current policy. I think it's unlikely that it would change because I think they're using that as a tool to help grow their utility.
It's a good policy. They shouldn't change.
However, things change, as we all know, that, there could be an
But
administration
my point
change
is, nothing's going to develop there until Pendleton annexes it if the current policy stands. So if that's the case, that they're ultimately going to decide what goes there anyway.
Right, it's a good point.
So I guess what it really would look like is if someone wanted to develop that any further on this, it likely would have to be annexed if Pendleton wouldn't be offering water to the site. If it is annexed, then Pendleton could annex it as it's currently zoned, which then would be residential and ag that has a special use attached to it. If Pendleton's other policy is that they typically match whatever zoning district is already there that the county has on it, again, this is where I'm saying you're kind of giving Pendleton a recommendation on what, that zoning district should be. So I would say, does this board find this area as suitable for light industrial? And we could move forward that way so that when it is annexed by Pendleton, that it likely will stay that industrial zoning district. Because I think we all are in some agreements that, residential may not be the best suited zoning district for that parcel that's along State Road 67 right now. So.
And Rachel, one question or clarification. The extension of the public water also assumes that they wouldn't extend the water to the site without annexing. That's current policy, perhaps.
It is current
but
policy,
that's not necessarily, that's not necessarily always consistent with other jurisdictions. You can look to Boone County, Whitestown, Zionsville, extending utilities to area that's not necessarily annexed. So particularly perhaps due to the proximity to the site, of the site to Pendleton, proximity to the correctional facility across the street, there are opportunities by which it may be connected to public water without being annexed.
Well, and that's a good point too, because Ingalls could certainly extend their line, and if their policy is not to have it annexed, then that could be access to water. So even though we've had this Pendleton focus right now, I think we should consider that Ingalls could potentially provide water, especially with them being so close to the site as well. So.
And so Corey said it, I've said it, Rachel said it. I think the current R2 designation is not consistent with your current comprehensive plan as drafted. It's not harmonious with the surrounding uses, and we feel as though the LI light industrial designation fits under the 5 A, B, C, D, E recommendation or standards by which the Plan Commission should make a recommendation to the commissioners.
We do have the current town manager and planning director for Pendleton. Neil, would you want to chime in on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Can you come to the?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning. As Rachel said, my name is Neil Stevenson. I'm the current planning director and town manager for the town of Ingalls. Randy was here earlier speaking about the use there being light industrial. I think, our concern is the intensity of that light industrial use. Obviously, we have the wellhead protection area. Rachel is correct. Ingalls does not require the area to be annexed into the town of Ingalls for us to provide water service. So that is an area that could become, Ingalls water customer in the future. So as far as use goes, Rachel did a great job. Obviously, we haven't had any issues with Nutrition 101. They've been great partners. So, I would go with her recommendation. However, keeping in mind some of those other concerns we have with Ingalls and Pendleton and future annexation. So.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I make a motion?
We're ready, aren't we?
I'd like to make a motion on petition 2022Z005 to approve the rezone from AGR2 to light industrial per staff findings.
Mark, that's a favorable recommendation.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
A motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mark Gary,
Yes.
Denise Spooner,
Yes.
Lindsey Brown,
Yes.
Tom Shippers.
Yes.
John Richwan,
Yes.
Corey Bolander,
Yes.
and Wes Likens.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, Jeff, you know, we've passed that, but we talked about some stipulations under the rezoning in regards to, you know, reporting for angles and some other things. Could those be attached in another motion?
We've already passed it without those
I know.
conditions, but the Board of Commissioners could add those conditions and get it back to the Plan Commission for further review. So I would recommend if that's the way the Board of Commissioners would like to, that would be the way to address that.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
All right, the second meeting for the, or the next meeting for that will be at the Plan Commission meeting next week. Yes, man, I am just mixing words up today. Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, I want to just introduce the next petition, and then I will pass this over to Liz. I actually have a conflict on this, and I have not been handling it as staff. So this is petition number 2022-Z-006. The petitioner is Garrison Land Development Incorporated. There's multiple addresses, but this is basically at the corner of 800 and 800 in Green Township. HWC was hired by the petitioner to do their drawings for this project. So when I had a Zoom call set up with the developer or the petitioner, and right when we opened up those drawings, I said, I can't participate in this. So I stepped out. I talked with Jeff Graham about it. Jeff advised me to stay away from it as well. So Liz from our office has been handling this along with Jessica Baston. So I just wanted to be very upfront and clear that that was the situation, and that we've been very mindful of keeping me out of it. So with that, I will pass this over to Liz, and she will be doing a staff report on it.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Elizabeth Bruns, and I am the senior planner in the Madison County Planning Department. As Rachel said, we have petition 22Z006 in front of us today, and it is a requested rezone from agricultural to R3 single and two-family residential and MR multifamily residential. As she stated, the land is on the south side of 800 South, and it is on the east and west side of 800 West. The proposed area is approximately 141 acres, and they are proposing to build 320 homes. That'll be single family and empty nesters. They are also proposing to have Redwood build 151 leased units that will be single-story ranch-style units that will be leased on an annual basis. The vicinity of the land around it on the north, south, east, and west is all farmland with a handful of homes. The comprehensive plan and the request are fully located in the area designated as a growth area in the comprehensive plan. Thoroughfare plan indicates that 800 South is an arterial road and 800 West is a collector road. I have talked to Jessica. She couldn't be here today. She's the county engineer, and she sent an email, and I'll read it. She said, "We are aware of the infrastructure concern related to the roads in the area of this proposed development. We share many of the concerns. The recent paving of County Road 800 South was meant to be an immediate fix, not a long-term solution. We have started the initial efforts to determine what is needed in the area to support the long-term growth and development in the region, including the development of impact fees to help shift the cost of the infrastructure improvements to the development benefiting from it. Unfortunately, these are not quick solutions. She further says, for this development, we are requesting a traffic impact study paid for by the developer to assess the impact of the proposed homes. Sorry, I haven't had a voice for 3 weeks. Proposed homes on roads and intersections in the area. The developer will then be responsible for the cost to implement these improvements, depending on the findings of the study. This could be through immediate upgrades or through contributing to a larger improvement project in the area. She said if we have any further questions, we can contact her, but she was not available to be here today. We have contacted the petitioner has talked to the Ingalls Water, and they stated that they can accommodate the additional homes that this subdivision would bring. Fall Creek Regional Waste, Tim McCurdy, said that they could also accommodate the sewer connections. The area would be serviced by the Madison County Sheriff's Department, and the fire department is currently serviced the area by Pendleton Fire Department, which over the last couple of months, they have created a new fire department called the New South Madison Fire Territory, which will encompass Ingalls and Pendleton together. So they're going to group together. Excuse me. We've had several emails come in from remonstrators, which I believe Stacy put into your packet. And it seemed that there were concerns with the schools, which I have reached out to the superintendent of the South Madison Community School District. We did not make contact yesterday evening. He'd called and left me a message, and I did not have a chance to get back with him. But we feel that the schools are adequate for the capacity that this additional subdivision would bring. They are gearing the 320 homes for empty nesters and first-time home buyers. So there wouldn't be, the 320 homes wouldn't all be children that would be going into the school system. Let's see here. The staff recommends that according to the ordinance, if we follow what the ordinance requires for a subdivision, we have to recommend either approval or denial according to what our ordinance states. So the staff recommends that if this were to be approved, that they increase all the road widths throughout the development to the minimum of 30 feet measured from the back to the back of the curb. This applies to public and private streets to ensure sufficient access for emergency vehicles. The private streets would be on the leased area of the 19 acres of leased area, which would be on the northwest section of the project. I'm sorry. We would also recommend paved walking trails on both the east and the west sides of 800 West outside of the right-of-way to be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. The proposed entrance to the Redwood multifamily zoning district appears to be too close to 800 South, and it would be our preference if the entrance is either eliminated or moved further to the south to keep it for safety reasons. All amenities we recommend would be on the east and the west side of the project. They are planning for a dog park on one side and a pool area on the other, and we would recommend that they be on both sides just to limit the traffic going across 800 West. We also are requesting stub roads for future connectivity to the east and the west if more subdivisions were to come in. And we, as Jess stated in her email, provided traffic study, impact study to determine the impacts of the proposed development on 800 South and 800 West and coordinate with the county engineer on needed improvements as indicated by the study. So if you guys don't have any questions of me, I'll turn it over to Mark Madison or Adam Mears to present their packet.
She's staff, she doesn't need to.
Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Adam Mears. I'm with Madison Land Development. With me also is Mark Madison, by his name. He is also with Madison Land Development. We're happy to be here and appreciate your time this morning. This is a project that we have been working on for several years. I think it was likely 2 years ago I first met with Brad Newman to talk about this piece of ground, and we worked with him for off and on for about a year on this project. And of course, he's no longer here, so we kind of started the whole process over recently and have been working with Liz and Jessica, and they've done a great job. Appreciate their time in helping us get to where we are today. So you've got this packet in front of you, and I think Stacy may put it up there also in a minute, but the binder in front of you, just kind of start going through it with you and talk a little bit about the development, a little bit about us, and what we envision here for this site. Madison has been in the land development business for over 30 years. We currently have 20 plus developments in various stages, from either just under contract to fully selling lots, both here in central Indiana and in the Cincinnati area. So we've got plenty of experience in planning and developing subdivisions, and that's what we do. Our vision here for this project, as it is for all of our projects, is to be thoughtful in design, and there's been a significant change for us to do developments that offer various products. So not just one development with 320 of the exact same product, but offering a variety of home styles and types to meet the needs of various different buyers. The site plan, as you can see it, is, again, the area in yellow is 320 units. They're all 60 by 120. And those are a variety, again, primarily on the west side is going to be the single family homes that we'll get to when you see the images. And on the right side of 800 West will predominantly be what we call an empty nester product. We've done this product in various locations. It's very successful. We do it as a maintenance-free community, meaning the HOA takes care of the lawn maintenance, again, the mowing, the mulching, the shrub trimming, fertilization, snow, not just on the streets, but also the driveways and walks. And again, for that empty nester, that's an amenity that they really like and take advantage of. The area in the northwest corner is just under 20 acres, and that is going to be planned for redwood. We'll get to redwood in a minute, but it's essentially apartment homes. A very successful product. It kind of, I don't want to say it's a new product, but it's certainly probably the fastest growing product in the country from a development standpoint are these leased homes. So we'll get into redwood here in a minute. As you can see, there are amenities. I know Liz mentioned of all, and I'll go through the staff report and all of the recommendations from staff. We are fine with accepting all of the recommendations of staff other than the amenities being duplicated on each side of the street. As you can see on the west side is the pool. There'll be a pool house. That's generally in the single family area. We have not found that pools are used or generally favored in our empty nester product. They're just not used. The dog park is used in the empty nester product, and to put two $500,000 pools on either side of 800 when one of them is generally not going to get used, we just don't think is appropriate for this development. And it's not something we the first time we talked to Jessica and Liz about it, we said, if we thought it would get a lot of use, maybe it would make sense, but the empty nester product just does not. We've never put a pool amenity in the empty nester product area because it's just not a desired amenity, and the dog park really is. So again, a lot of thought and planning went into this, and we're very excited about the site plan. If you go to the architecture of the villas, you can see the villas they're cottage style. They use varying types of architecture. We use an anti-monotony with our builder. We'll have an anti-monotony clause in our documents with the builder that allows them to not build the same exact home. You can, yeah, sure. To not build the same home next to each other. So again, you get varying looks of color and not just one color all the way down the street. So there's a couple examples of the villas and then the streetscape of the villas. On the next slide is the single family product, which again are predominantly the same anti-monotony code. And again, these are generally first-time home buyer product. The price range for these products, I don't think today you can't build a house. The smallest house, I don't think you could build one of these for under $250,000. These will generally be $275,000 and up on the Simply Ryan side, and on the empty nesters, probably more like $325,000. And we can get into a little bit of the redwood product, but from a leasing standpoint, their market rates, and we would not have control over that. We would end up selling that land to them, and they would manage, and that would end up being their product. The next slide details.
Who would manage that again? I'm sorry.
Redwood.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got some slides in here coming up about them. The next slide is just showing some examples of what we would anticipate for entry monumentation. You can see we've got these 3 entries, circles. Of course, the one in the north, as Liz mentioned, staff would prefer that to be moved south. I think the recommendation said, work with staff after the traffic study comes out to determine where that appropriate entrance would be, and we're certainly fine with that, and recognize their concern, and we think there are clearly other ways to get that moved, moved to a place that staff supports. So those are some examples of our entryway. The next slide just shows where the pool area is on the west and the dog park on the east. And I've got some examples of things on the next slide showing kind of examples of what we would anticipate for a pool house, pool, and dog park. The idea of these amenities, for us is to do our best to plan these amenities that promote individuals and families coming together. Certainly a dog park is a great place to get to know your neighbors and get to know your neighbors' dogs. I've got a Great Dane, and she seems to get a lot of attention whenever we go out. So it's fun being with other people and meeting your neighbors and getting to know not just their families but their pets. And same with the pool, a nice neighborhood gathering area for kids to get to know each other. And really the idea is to promote a neighborhood that brings people together, and we believe these amenities do that, and will be a great addition to the county. The infrastructure on the next slide, we'll have plenty of retention ponds in order to handle, and again, we're not far enough in design to know the exact depth and drainage studies. We haven't gone through those. Certainly, if we get a favorable recommendation and we get through council, we'll work with staff and of course all the state statutes in order to make sure that we're properly detaining what we need to detain. But generally, if there are any, and I don't know this, but if there are any type of water issues in the area, I'm sure you've heard this before, it's true, development significantly improves water issues in an area, because we have to, what may be free flowing around in a farm, we have to grab now and detain and put it into a system. So if there are water issues in the area, nothing better for that than a development. As Liz said, we've talked to water and sewer. It was a long time ago. It might have been a year and a half ago that I talked to Randy about it, just on a phone call, but utilities are right at the front door, so we certainly don't see that as an issue. The next slide is the Redwood plan. Again, these are leased apartment homes. Redwood is a very large company, and you can see that site plan, and then we can go into the Redwood slides. Redwood has over 100 neighborhoods, 13,000 apartment homes. They're in 7 states. They have several projects in the Indianapolis area, and they are really, at least in this region, the leader in this product. They keep great, and I don't know if I left this one slide in, but they do a great job of maintaining their communities. They manage them professionally, and again, they're leased, but the residents treat them like their own. If you go to the next slide, generally their neighbors are about 50 and a half years young, as they say. There's 70% empty nesters. Again, these are empty nesters that want to lease and literally have to have no concern, unlike the buyers that will buy our empty nester product. We don't feel like it's a competing market. They're just different, they want different things. There's about 1.65 residents per home, 1.5 cars. I think an important thing, and this is very true on our empty nester product as well, the amount of school-age kids per 100 homes is incredibly small, both in this product and in the empty nester product. For example, in our empty nester product, we don't allow playgrounds, and there just aren't generally kids in that area. The other reason why we don't put a pool on the empty nester side is a lot of the empty nesters just don't want kids running around. They don't want the noise. They don't want that hassle. But while it sounds like a lot of homes, again, a substantial number of these products are going to not have children in them. So just want to make that clear. Their standard lease terms a year, but residents stay just over 2.39 years, and 12% of them stay more than 5 years. On the next slide, just talking about what they have, they've got single-story apartment neighborhoods. They're 2-car attached private entrance garages, personal patios or decks, stone and shake siding accents, and extensive landscaping. And the interiors, they're all generally 1,300 plus living spaces, open floor plans. They've got granite countertops, private entryways, vaulted ceilings, energy certified construction. And then I've included a couple floor plans for just you to see, but these are nice, well-kept, long-term residents that want an empty nester lifestyle without having to own it and maintain anything. And we think Redwood's a great partner to do that with. There was another slide that I didn't include that talked, one of their developments is 30 years old in Ohio, and it just won an award for its design and still looking great after 30 years. So they spend a lot of effort taking care of their product. The final slide, again, just the goals. We want to create a unique community here in Madison County. We want to provide, as I opened with, a variety of home styles to meet the needs of those moving to Madison County, or those wanting to move within the county. We have what we believe product and lot details that meet the consumer demand and provide amenities, as I said, that bring everybody together. I do want to reiterate what Liz said. The comp plan, this is a growth area. So the comp plan's had it as a growth area for a long time, so it shouldn't be a surprise that development is interested in coming here and going to come in this area. And also, I did want to note our open space is just over 31% in this project. So we are providing a lot of open space, green space. The ponds will be gorgeous. The amenities will be great, and we think this will be a wonderful addition in Madison County. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can't answer it, I know Mark can't, so no pressure on Mark. And I will sign in.
Are these, sir, are these paintable products?
I'm sorry?
Are they painted siding or vinyl siding? Or
Predominantly vinyl siding.
vinyl siding?
Yes. Anybody have any other questions? I'm happy to. And certainly, I presume a number of people are here to talk about this, so I'll be happy to come back up after they've done and address concerns and comments and questions. But appreciate your time. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, again, if the public wants to come up and you have something to say, make sure that you sign in on the sign-in sheet, and you'll have some time to talk. Once all the public input is done, then the petitioner will be able to come back up and address any concerns or to, talk about anything that he has that maybe got brought up in the public input. So.
Good morning, Greg Valentine. I live at 5297 South 800 West. I've been the Green Township trustee for 24 plus years. Looks like another term ahead of me. I got 3 or 4 concerns about this. They have met with our maintenance guy at Falkirk Regional Waste. We can't handle it. I serve on that board there. The concerns I've got are not so much with the the waste or the water, but I served on this board with this man here 25 years ago, and we had maybe 1 or 2 subdivisions a year come in. And, Green Township, we've been bombarded with everybody from Hamilton County that can't find a place to build, or, as they say, home will be $25,000 or $30,000 more right across the county line. Just in the last 2 years now, 412 Lennar homes are coming in, 90 Ryan homes, and 750 arbors, including the 182 or 184 that Ingalls approved last night. So we've got 1,230 plus homes in the works or already built, which is 590 acres. I live on a family farm. I hate to see them go, but I know this is a hot area and I know it's going to go. But I would like to see you guys and the commissioners put some restrictions on it. Speak to you as the township trustee. We help with energy assistance. Every day I get 2 to 3 phone calls. You would not believe the people in the new Maple Trails. The Lennar's not hit me yet, but the ones over on the county line, the Ryan homes, I need my water bill paid. I need my sewer bill paid. So just to give you an example, on a $340,000 home, if this would be the high end, Madison County is going to get right at $900. How much do you think Green Township gets to help with energy assistance? $57. I won't even pay a portion of a water bill, maybe the sewer bill. So with that, I'd like to see put a restriction on these rentals. Summer Lake is roughly 25% rentals. I get a call every day of the week, including Sundays. When I'm at church, can you help me with the water bill? Can you help me with the sewer bill? I'm disconnected tomorrow. I know it's not your fault that these people aren't being vetted. And I don't think it's the builders. I think it's predatory lenders, maybe you might say. So that's something I want you to think about. The other is, I'm going to shift here over to our newly created South Madison Fire Territory. I'm a member of the board on that. And Ingalls was taken over September 1st by town of Pendleton, so that's Pendleton/Ingalls Fire Department. We're needing to build something on the west side of town in the next 3, 4, 5 years to serve all these areas. So if you need a dog park, I would think maybe we could get a couple acres to put a new fire station right there on 800. It really needs to be, according to ISO standards, it needs to be, right, Jeff, within 5 miles. 5 miles of our, Jeff is our legal on this, within 5 miles of our existing fire station. That would be a perfect location on County Road 800 along there. And I know all the farmers, I've been talking to them, nothing yet, but might be something to think about. That might be, instead of an impact fee, which we have done before for Green Township builders, Summer Lake was the last big one, maybe ask them, I don't know if it's out of the question, but it'd be kind of a sales pitch. I think you got a fire station right there in your backyard. You know, you don't have to wait on Ingalls to come out, or Pendleton, which is 4.8 miles away. So I hate to see the urban sprawl. I know it's going to happen, and we really do need you to stick with the 30-foot curb to curb. You can't believe the problems we have in Summer Lake with 22 and 26 curb to curb. You got a car parked on this side of the street and a car parked on that side of the street. You cannot get an ambulance through, let alone a fire truck. Even though there's signs that say no parking on this side of the street. I mean, they'll park in front of the mailboxes, and the mailman won't even deliver the mail. He'll just take it back to Pendleton. I'd like to see you put some really strong restrictions on the apartments, or turn down the apartments part. The houses sound like it might be something we can use. And I was fortunate enough to know Stuart Rayford, the man who bought all that acreage, paid for it. He was a hard-working farmer. Kind of sad to see the grandkids selling it, but you know, that's what happens nowadays. That's all I got, and I appreciate you listening.
Craig, when you're talking about maybe some restrictions on the apartment side of things, what type of things are you talking about?
They need to be working and have income. How's that? I don't know, but it is a problem. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
You can't do much with $57. That's a year. I mean, most people call me, hey, I got a $300 electric bill, or I got a $250 water bill. We just talked to a person in the New Maple Trails not too long ago. They lived there 5 months. They've never paid a sewer or water bill. We thought that was included with the house payment. Well, you get a bill. So I'm concerned about the urban sprawl, and John and I have talked about this in the past. All of you farmers know what we're talking about. It is a very hot area, and it's just going to continue to grow. But give it some serious thought on the things I've mentioned, and I'm sure you've got a couple other people out here with the same concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Need to make a 30-second run for it.
All right, move on.
I can't talk and write at the same time like Greg can. My name is Thomas Matthews. I live at 8260 South, 800 West. That's my house. I purchased it from Stu Rayford that Greg mentioned. So, I've known the Rayfords for quite a while. Even Stu's son, Stu Rayford, quoted him out of a book saying that he was really proud of the way their family had maintained farmland in the area for a long time, for 7 generations. Looks like 8th generation crapped out. I'm going to get right to my concerns here. I have a number of requests for this board. First off, I'd like to request a special hearing for this, either with this commission or with the commissioners meeting. Most folks cannot come to a meeting that's timed on a weekday morning and take off of work for that. And this project is way too big for not having enough public input. This development affects everyone in this section, in our section of the county, who uses State Road 13, 800 South, or Maple Ridge Elementary. We also ask that we suspend rezoning for development in southwest Madison County until a broader plan is established to control that development. This portion of the county is already under distress from undermanaged development. Multiple housing developments that Greg named were already allowed in this area without adequate consideration for the infrastructure, including Estes Park, Summer Lake Meadows, Springbrook, and Maple Trails. These developments have already taxed the area roads and services to their limits. We ask that the county formulate a coherent plan to protecting the quality of life for our residents before any new rezoning development is approved. The county is currently unprepared to accommodate additional development in the area. Before rezoning for development is approved, we ask that that plan address several factors. On land usage, the plan should forecast the future zoning anticipations and locations and types of homes to be built. On the quality of buildings, we need to bind the developers to higher standards of quality to protect our property investments. This will coincidentally bolster future property tax revenues. And while I generally favor Ryan homes, the R3 zoning request for this proposal tells me that it's probably not planned for some of their better work. On prerequisite road improvements, I hope at least one of you have driven up down the 800 South in the last 6 months. A substandard effort was made to widen 800 South after Summer Lake was built about 20 years ago, only to result in dangerous decay on the edges of the roads. And while the recent effort to improve that road is certainly appreciated, it's woefully inadequate. This road is still too narrow, and its edges don't have adequate substrate. The substrate edges from the widening for Summer Lake was not sufficient. And since that same substrate was not fixed on the edges in the recent improvements, I'll just about guarantee you're going to see the same failure in 2 to 3 years. By the way, by profession, I'm an engineer. The width of this road also makes construction traffic a real hazard. I'm sure a lot of people can attest in this room to being run off the road by large construction trucks who were either unable or unwilling to share the road. And meanwhile, the intersection of State Road 13 and 800 South has grown more dangerous with the increased traffic. And now we're told that the plans to accelerate improvements to that, the plan to improve that intersection has been accelerated. However, I don't believe that the plans that are currently going to be implemented there are designed to keep pace with additional development. On prerequisite infrastructure improvements, I think Greg spoke adequately to the fire station issue. However, I would like to see that the county consider impact fees for all the development in the future, specifically for the fire station. On coordination with South Madison Community Schools, I'm not too sure how anybody can make the claim that adding 300 houses with children in them, and the total number of houses I think is more like 450. But even if I pair that back to 300 that are anticipated for families, I'm not too sure how anybody can make the claim that that's not going to have an impact on the schools. On coordination with the town of Ingalls, I mean, they have one recent, Maple Trails is a recent development for them, and apparently another one was just approved here within the last week. We would like the study to include coordination with the town of Ingalls to make sure that people on one side of an incorporated line aren't developing to the expense of people on the other side of the incorporated line. And on the rate of development in the area, we'd like the plan to include annual limitations on building permits that are consistent with infrastructure improvements. A public meeting regarding Maple Trails, at a public meeting regarding Maple Trails, the builder estimated they'd be building 10 homes per year. At that pace, they've already exceeded their 20-year quota. There's more than 200 houses in that neighborhood right now. So more like 240. I just counted them 2 days ago. We ask that all rezoning development be halted until impact fees are implemented consistent with the broader development plan. And we understand that the county is already considering the impact fees to mitigate these costs to existing residents. And we applaud that effort, but it's past due. We need the impact fees first, then the development. We ask that zoning reclassifications for this petition, if any, be limited to R1. Growing congestion is a problem, and R3 and MR are classifications that are only going to amplify the problem. We ask that the county work in accordance with the laudable goals as stated in its comprehensive plan. This zoning request is inconsistent with that plan's stated goals of preserving the agricultural land use of Madison County, but more specifically, its inconsistent with the goal stated for forming a regional development committee to prevent traffic congestion, improve safety, and create a sense of place. In fact, the comprehensive plan prescribes much of the planning I just outlined, including the coordination across county and corporate areas. So these are good ideas, but we need to stick to that plan and work that plan before we approve additional developments. In summary, we ask that the commission immediately halt all rezoning development in southwest Madison County until it has time to act on its stated goals for managing that development. We recognize that the development in the area is inevitable, and so does the county, and we don't want to stop it, we just want to manage it. What I see in this meeting here is the developers are managing the development and the county is behind. What I'd like to see is the county get ahead of the developers and we actively manage it from the county and let them follow our plan instead of us following theirs. And finally, I'd like to say thank you. I'm pretty sure that sitting in those chairs is a job that doesn't get a lot of accolades, but I do appreciate your service to the county. Do you have any questions, Phil? Oh, may I make one more point? The developer was, and specifically regards to the apartments, they said that they have less than 12% turnover in 5 years. Flip that math over. That means they have 88% turnover every 5 years. Oh, sorry. Brenda, I'm replacing the sign-in sheet, if I can find it. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Good morning. I agree that we should have something where many people can attend and not have something so early in the morning because there's a lot of people that are in the neighborhood that aren't here. I know I see a lot of my neighbors. My name's Ann Cor, and that last little block at the very south of the property, the 4 acres there, that's my property. So this is going to surround me on both sides, just like it's going to surround them on both sides. And the roads there are bad enough to begin with, so we have a problem with our infrastructure. And with Maple Trails going in, the amount of truck traffic that went along 800 absolutely destroyed the road. Now they put some pavement on it, but before you couldn't hardly drive on the road, and you had to move way over because there were so many holes in it or dips in it that you had to get out of the way of the other person. You couldn't have two people pass side by side with even just with the mailboxes there. So that's part of the problem. And then down on 800 West, which is where I'm at, so if you go south, then you got to think about 750 and Fall Creek and everything, because people are avoiding those main roads of State Road 13, and they're cutting through. And I can tell you, I've been there for 10 years. The traffic in front of my house on 800 West is exorbitant. And on 800 South, it's not safe to walk on at all. People there go at least 60 miles an hour down that country road. And this morning at 13 and 800, I almost got hit by a car taking a right-hand turn because they were doing the road work. They won't allow you to turn. There was an emergency vehicle there. This guy was turning left. I had the right of way to turn right, and he pulled out in front of me. And I almost hit him. So that's part of it. I've been in real estate for 20 years, and if you look at many of the areas that have been developed over the years, Avon and Fishers, they didn't build their infrastructure before they built their neighborhoods. And that was a huge mistake for them because their quality of their homes were lower. They were all vinyl villages. They're not worth as much as they are anymore. And being able to get back and forth was a problem. So people weren't moving there as fast. They were because the houses were cheaper. But do we want cheaper homes? Do we want people with lower incomes to come into the area? Or do we want a higher tax base and people who actually can afford to be there? Plus, with the interest rates the way they are, I'm questioning the sustainability of this particular community because a first-time homeowner at $275,000, interest rates now are almost at 6%. And the gas prices are at $5 a gallon. So if they go to Indianapolis or they go to Fishers or Westfield, anywhere, the cost is going to increase exponentially, and then they're going to be calling him for help. But, and those are for the people that know. A lot of times I know that they change the laws with these new developments, so now that they have to tell them about when the taxes hit. But people don't listen to that. They look at that bottom line. Well, the first 2 years, they're paying on that property the property lot value, and their taxes are $19. Then all of a sudden on year 3, and this is what happened in 2008, on year 3, they're coming along, and now their payment doubles because they not only have to pay the taxes that are there and put those into their escrow account, but they have to make up for that too, so they're double timing. And most of the people don't understand that. And if they don't have the money to pay for what they're doing now, how are they going to sustain that when all of a sudden their payment doubles? Plus, we don't know what the gas prices are going to do. And I don't think that continuing with growth with vinyl-sided homes is really the way to go. If you look at all the other communities, they have changed that, and they said, we're not accepting vinyl. Why? Because we want a higher quality product in there. Something that's not going to, if you look at Summer Lakes now and you drive through there, it's not very attractive. The homes are side by side together. They're very close. These aren't going to be that much further apart. And the vinyl degrades over time. Now, I can say that because I have a vinyl house. I have an old 1900s farmhouse that has been in vinyl. And with the last hurricane that came through my house, that went through Huntsville, my house was the first one hit. So I have a lot of damage from that because it becomes brittle, and then you get breakage and everything else. And there's no way to maintain that except for to actually replace that vinyl. Well, people in those homes are not going to be able to afford that. And so when it comes to the fire department, yeah, it's a very big concern to have a fire department put in. That's got to be one of the main infrastructures, because my friend down at the corner of Fall Creek and 800, he was having a heart issue, and it appeared he was having a heart attack. Called 911. We got an ambulance from Lawrence, and it took him 30 minutes to get there. Yeah. Also, when it comes to Maple Trails, one of my neighbors and friends of a long time, he's over there and he backs up to it, and he is having more problems because he owns 30 acres. He has livestock. He has a farm. I have 4 acres. I can have livestock if I want it. Well, people are going to start complaining if I put pigs on the backside of my property that go right up to the cul-de-sac, but I have the right to do that. Also, with shooting, I have the right to shoot out there because I'm on 4 acres. I have the land. I can do that. He gets calls all the time because people are complaining because, well, they're moving out to the country because it's more affordable, but you're not taking into consideration the lifestyle of the people that are already there. And to me, that's a huge thing. The infrastructure is probably the biggest, and if you're not going to go and fix the roads beforehand, because we're not just talking about these 4 roads, we're talking about the entire area. And we don't have good roads to begin with. We're chip seal roads on 90% of what we have. And that just doesn't last with these big trucks going through. So I think that's probably all I have to say, and I appreciate your time. And thank you.
So my name is Bruce Poston. I live at 7784 West 920 South, which doesn't show up on your map there, but I live about a half a mile south of that proposed development. First of all, I'd like to know, is this a document that you folks all use, have looked at, participated in probably the development of it? It's the Forward Madison County Comprehensive Plan. I think it's a great document. I applaud everybody that worked on it, the community input that came from it and such, because it really provides a roadmap for your decision-making in instances like this. This was finalized, approved apparently about 16 months ago. So it was meant to, provide a framework for planning for the next 25 years. So one of the things that just struck me almost on page 1 here, well, actually it's page 234, it basically says the travel demand model that was developed by the County Council of Governments said that the Madison County's population was projected to grow by about 4,000 people over the next 25 years from 2021. This development alone will probably bring in 800 to 1,000 of those 4,000 people. So that's not to mention all these other developments that are getting approved. We've already exceeded that. So what I'm asking you to do is put a stop on this until we get everything else in place. As already echoed here, so one of the things that really struck me also is who developed this surveyed Madison County residents and indicated that growth and redevelopment should occur within existing towns and cities as opposed to greenfield development. As you can see there, that's a greenfield, all of it. And your own plan says you ought to let growth happen in cities and towns and not in the open spaces. And why is that? Because the county's rural character largely contributes to the residents' desired sense of place. Those of us that are here, we move there for that. We want to live in the country. We want to enjoy the benefits of open green spaces. And you're going to take that away because in a lot of factors for those of us here, we're going to have to travel right through the center of that development to get anywhere we want to go. And while I'm talking about infrastructure, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, if you head south, and a big portion of that traffic is going to head south on 800 West, those roads very quickly deteriorate to something where you can only get one car by without hitting your mirror. I've had my mirror hit twice on that road, 800 West, simply by the fact that the roads aren't wide enough. Now, I have a Ford Expedition. It's an SUV. It's a little bigger than most. And I was hit both times by a pickup truck. But folks, that's what we drive. We're not talking construction traffic, which if there's any kind of traffic associated with construction, we have to get off the road, because I can tell you they won't. They own the road. So you're going to have to improve the road going south. The feeder routes are either 900 south or Fall Creek to the west. A lot of that traffic, if they're going toward Lawrence, Fortville, wherever, they're going to go south. They're going to take Fall Creek, which is another inferior road, and they're going to come to an intersection of State Road 13, which is a hill. And I can't tell you how many times I'm almost pulled out onto that road. You have to gun it to get out there because you never know what's coming over that hill right behind you. So it's just a terrible place to do this kind of development without infrastructure being added. So from that standpoint, I wanted to mention just that, was infrastructure. So no, I don't have my page on infrastructure. Well, I'm just going to echo what everybody else said. The roads can't handle that, and I would ask that you, if we're going to have growth in that area, if you've identified that as a growth corridor, get the rest of the county and everybody, all the municipalities, Ingalls and such on board, and let's improve the infrastructure. The roads need a complete overhaul in that entire area. School buses, I wouldn't want my kid to be on a school bus on any of those roads. Just not enough room. There's no place. I walk along 800 West. It's a nice walk out through there. That's going to be gone. The traffic is too heavy. I won't ride a bike on any roads out there because it's too, you're taking your life into your own hands. So, you know, slowly but surely, the life that we enjoyed when we moved there is being taken away from us. Don't do it all in one fell swoop. You know, make this thing last a few years. These guys can afford to work with the county services to get the things there in place before they go through with this development. There's no need to rush this. And as the other person mentioned, you know, we're going to face a housing downturn. The last thing we want is a development that's started and they go bankrupt in the middle of it. Thank you.
Want to take a break?
Oh, yeah.
10 minutes? 5 minutes. 5-minute break.
Thank you for the chicken that will park down the street in a meeting like this.
The city will. If you're out here long.
Liz.
Hey bud, how you doing?
I almost made it to the finish line, didn't quite make it.
Don't worry, I'm not around two already made out.
How are you? Dancing I know you. Piece of cheese, come on. I see him every time I see you. I see him out there. Really? Down there, there's a half-inch rain? I didn't get anything. I didn't get anything.
Sorry about that.
I see where Fort Wayne had 6.5 to 7 inches.
Just trying to get everybody's name.
I didn't have to drop. Did you?
One rain we
Oh, really? Never seen that.
I've got an old neighbor sitting on the back of the farm. My neighbor told me the way he saved his place, he got this over
Just breaks the soil up. Yeah, I know what you mean. Couldn't get in. This place was closed, so they canceled it. And after that, we got 2 weeks, and then we got the Monica rain carrying it that day, too. The Monica rain at 10 o'clock that day. 300 east and 100 south. And everything there. 6 months ago, I was here.
No, yours is all on, right? It's all one.
He's still in.
You know, I'm Rose Lake State, and trying to pull it up right now. They could,
I've been out there. That's out there. You know, at that time, I think they were. I think they were running over there, right? We stopped out there talking about that, Rock and I. They're not? I know what's that. I know that.
Hi, how are you? That's what I wanted You're like a backward bell. So you guys are in that area. Hi, Mark, how are you? Well, we can take this right when we walk in.
We're all kind of refreshed now.
Yeah.
I said, I do it once now.
I told you 6
That makes sense. I went out once for 2 years. I didn't even drink any coffee this morning. I'm still.
Hey, Brio, how are you?
Hi.
That's right. Say what?
Think everybody get back in?
I know. This is going to be a long one, I think, today. Probably going to skip work. I don't know.
Like I have to leave. Yes. Yeah, I can, I'll stop that happening. I'm sure.
Well, here we are.
Hey, give me just,
We're gonna, yeah, and these like this, we're gonna. And this is, but I'm already in the middle of it now, I can't.
hey, make sure he'll give me time enough to restart everything.
Let's go, let's start. Let's get restarted.
You could just simply say something like that, or something like that.
I want to say that.
First one up on you. I wanted to make sure I could write my name.
Checking everything that you're saying.
You can write it. I did.
That hasn't already been said.
I need to go out there. It's been a while. Sure.
I'll go ahead and fix it.
I said, Mark, I have no marks.
Thank you.
5 years old.
Yes.
I'm going to picture you.
Right under there. She's lucky she's got.
I know, we're right there.
She was okay.
Cold.
Oh, she goes, I'm so
All right.
We're about ready?
I said, yeah. Yeah, just kind of a little.
We have a connection, so we had a,
Thank you very much.
and it connected to Pendleton, like over there.
Pretty good.
There you go.
Better hurry, you better hurry, your 5 minutes is about up.
Yeah,
How are you?
Thank you, sir.
He just decided to get together.
Well, he got missed.
I said, you better hurry up, your 5 minutes is about up.
He gonna miss him now.
Sir, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Wherever you're ready, you let me know.
Everybody can take a seat, we're gonna restart, please.
Continue. What are we doing?
My name's Ned Craig. That little niche out of the top left corner is 5 acres that belongs to me.
From here?
Yes. And I have refused to sell it because the house just to the west, or to the east, there's a lift station. And this time of year, it smells terrible. There's not enough room for an exit from that subdivision. I refuse to sell my 5 acres because I don't want a lift station across the road from my house. I've got 5 fire hydrants on my property. And Engel's water system refused to pay 1 penny to a farmer for the right of way to bury water. They've lost 3, I think, fire hydrants in the last 2 or 3 years. And they come asking, do you know what happened to it? Well, they're right up against the road. I don't know who. I was on this planning commission body when we built this courthouse here. We held meetings in the tower apartments. We went through this comprehensive plan you're talking about. And our county attorney, we were trying to limit where you could park motor homes. He informed us he'd park his effing motor home wherever he pleased. We've got all kinds of problems in Summer Lake. I had the first 84 passenger school bus, and I take offense because I drove for 16 years. Every winter, I took my backhoe down to Summer Lake and dug the corners out because they didn't clean the snow out. Phil Hollinger and I were the only 2 bus drivers when that started. And their turnover was terrific. I think there was 10 or 12 houses on my route alone that were for sale. If one house caught on fire, 3 were damaged. So fire protection is needed in Green Township. I think that's thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Neil again with the Town of Ingalls. I just had a few questions, and Rachel, I think, just stepped out. So my question was for the utility. I know the previous gentleman spoke about the proximity of the water lines to the road, which it is true. I mean, when Ingalls installed those lines, I'm not sure how long ago it was, prior to my time there. If you drive along 800, there's a few of them that are right up on the side of the road there. And unfortunately, that would require the town to purchase easements. So I'm hoping that as part of this process, the county has considered, requiring the developer to put easements in on the north side to allow for that utility to be moved down a little ways from the road. I know that's our intent. If we do annex any area to the north, we will ask developers to put additional easements in for utilities and actually move those utilities so that road can be widened in the future. Another thing I want to address was the width of the roads. I think she said 30 feet. I actually think that's a little narrow. 30 feet is currently the road widths in Prairie Hollow. And I don't know if you've driven through Prairie Hollow. When you've got traffic parked on both sides of the streets, it's still pretty narrow through there. I think it provides like 11 or 12 feet of clearance, which you can't pass 2 vehicles at the same time. So we actually required 36 for the new Arbor Home Edition that's going in. Another thing I want to talk about, I don't know if the Redwood product is going to be assessed as commercial, but if the county's considered including that into a TIF district, if that is commercial, that would be something that we would look at as a community to provide additional revenue to allow capital improvements for roads and those types of things. And the last thing is, as Ingalls continues to grow, these developments kind of provide somewhat of a problem as far as annexation. So while we don't have a contiguous boundary currently with this development, so there'd be no way we could bring it in town, in the future as we do grow, that may become contiguous. But the fact is, once you subdivide that parcel, it nearly becomes impossible to annex that in. So every time a new subdivision goes in, that's one more area that's outside of our ability to bring into town. So I want to make sure you're considerate of that. I know some communities have asked for waivers of remonstrance if you approve development, so that if Ingalls does grow in the future, we can provide more of assistance to them and maintain the roadways and those types of things. So, Rachel, do you know if they're asking for utility easements on the north side?
I've not been involved, so that would be for Liz.
So yeah, Liz. Okay, because I do know our water line does run, once you cross 800 west on the west side, our water line is on the south side of that roadway. It kind of does this meandering maneuver there actually at 800 where it shifts from the north side to the south side. So our water utility line is on the north boundary there of that site. So that is something I would think you'd want to consider as part of this. Oh, another thing is, if this is approved, do you know when they'd start developing the homes or building the homes?
Likely within next year. I don't know.
Okay. I would just say the State Road intersection, State Road 13 and 800 is obviously an issue for a lot of the traffic in the area. We've had several accidents over the past few months and just the past few years. I know NDOT's in the process of improving that intersection to a signalized intersection, but I don't think they're planning on doing that until 2024, 2025. So that is down the road. But as we continue to get more traffic, if that intersection becomes a problem, we're going to see a lot more accidents because of the amount of traffic coming into the area. So that's all I had.
Hi. I'm Heather Brock-Wignall. I have a home at 7912 West 900 South. And I wanted to just add a couple points. There's been some really great points made already. First of all, the funny thing is that many of us haven't talked, so maybe some of these petitions are pretty reasonable. So first and foremost, I mean, in terms of our notification, we saw a sign out on this 4th of July. And we, that is only, how many days ago? Not too many days ago. We had, holiday weekend and that sort of thing. I think that's probably the case for probably many people in that area. And I would just reiterate that for development of this size, to not have much time to prepare is probably a pretty big issue for those of us in the area. One little point of clarification, the lady who spoke up first had suggested that there's just a handful of homes that are impacted by this development, and I would suggest that that's not necessarily the case, depending on your definition of a handful. Just south of that, there is a rural subdivision there, which is lots of 1 acre. There's some of us that have 16 acres and 7 acres, 5 acres, that sort of thing. So there's quite a few people out there, and there's quite a few already an established rural subdivision feel out there of neighbors who walk the streets and who want to have small farms and just a rural feel. So the perspective that I'm bringing is that it might not be the right type of development right next to what's already out there, and may not be in the best interest of the county, in my opinion. We already have homes out there that are from 30 to 50 years old and even newer, but they've already established a feel. This is not the feel. This is not what's already going on out there, and I think that the county would be missing an opportunity to draw a type of development and continue sort of what's already going on out there. The development's inevitable, and we know that. This seems like too much too soon and the wrong kind of development. Couple other issues we're concerned about is flooding. There's already existing flooding there. I don't know. I would argue the statement that developments improve water issues seems suspicious, but maybe even in the short term. I don't know how that exactly happens. I know long term that other places that I've lived, the developers are long gone, and the city is left to deal with the flooding and water issues. There is a small creek that's running on the south side of my property through that area, which inevitably would be impacted. We would have probably some increased flow in that area, as we've seen, other places where we've lived. The developments will flood, and there's really nothing that can be done about it at that point, except for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of investment by the county. So, so we would request that this continue pending, looking at more impacts and doing more studies in the area. I would echo what some of the other neighbors have said in that area, that intentional development, intentional planning, some forethought would be in the best interest of the neighbors. It would be in the best interest of Madison County in that area. Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I just have a couple notes here I'm looking at.
Excuse me.
Oh, there's a lot of notes. There's a lot of things that have been said. Essentially, we'd like for you guys to take a look at this, the appropriateness of this development in this area, the timing of it, and the types of housing that could eventually come into this area that would continue to, be a next stage of development for new families and that sort of thing in that area with what's already been started in the our subdivision in that area. So, thank you.
I did. Thank you.
My name is Brian Wignall. I am the property owner at 7912 West 900 South. So I bought a little farm here a little bit less than a year ago with the intentions of moving out of highly densely populated Carmel and moving into Pendleton to start a hobby farm. Little did I know, once I'd started investing and fixing this property up, I would be looking at having an apartment complex along with multiple tract homes immediately behind my property. I'd like to say a couple things. My full-time job, I work as a real estate broker. So I think it's a little concerning. We have 3 brokers that are really nervous about this whole development. Tract housing doesn't add to the value of a community. If Madison was building some of their custom homes, and they were talking about building homes on 3/4 of an acre, $1 million property, that would be different. But slamming a whole bunch of vinyl sided $275,000 homes is going to do absolutely nothing for the property values in our area. Secondarily, I think the gentleman from Madison had said that, hold on here, their retirement homes or their empty nester homes, generally the people don't have kids. There's no way to say that. I can tell you as a realtor that's sold tens of millions of dollars of properties, there's something called the Fair Housing Act that precludes you from saying you can't have kids here. So guys, look at it this way. We have a potential for 450 kids or more. What if you have families moving in with 3 kids, moving into a small house because that's all they can afford? We haven't even heard from the school superintendent if they can support half of that. And we have other subdivisions that are already being built. Building a community, or even voting today, I think this should be continued. Building a community without looking at the infrastructure and accomplishing the infrastructure to support that is just foolhardy. What builder would build a house without figuring out how many bathrooms you want? We're framing tomorrow. We'll figure out the bathrooms next week. You don't do that. And you see other communities, I think it's been said, that have done something like that, and it's really diminished property values, and it's really negatively and adversely impacted the community that's already living there. The other thing I would like to comment on, the statement that, let me see here, where is it? That new construction improves water issues. My wife and I currently own a house in Carmel in Woodfield, which is an old custom neighborhood. And I can tell you that statement is absolutely not correct. We had no flooding issues whatsoever in our neighborhood until new housing went in. And they didn't take that into account. And so when we bought our house, even though it was a 30-year-old house, we wound up within 6 months having to do $30,000 worth of remodeling to our basement because it completely flooded and demolished everything. We wound up investing $25,000 into French drains and berms and all kind of stuff on a house that never had any issues until new construction started popping up. We met with the city engineer, but once you ring that bell, you can't unring that bell, right? Taking farmland that absorbs water and putting 450, 350 houses and all that, how anybody could say that's not going to take what's currently existing with water table issue and make it worse is just foolish, right? So I think that's a big critical issue. The other thing I'll tell you, and I understand you can't stop progress, but there are some of us that have moved into that community intentionally to get away from overdevelopment. If I wanted to move into a neighborhood with vinyl houses all around me, I would have moved to certain areas of Fishers. I sell a lot of those houses to people, right? I wanted to buy a larger property where I could go out back and shoot if I want to, where we can raise chickens, where we can raise goats, all of that. That was my intention of investing. I've invested $100,000+ in the house I bought already. And if I knew that there was a potential of apartments springing up right on the other side of my property, I would have picked Elwood or somewhere else. It's my desire to be like some of you guys and have a hobby farm. And so taking this farmland to turn it, to me, is just a big mistake. And I think it is going to adversely impact the Pendleton area. From a design standpoint, you want to increase the tax rolls, but why don't we look at higher end housing? Why don't we look at drawing in people that want to start businesses that are unique businesses, as opposed to let's buy up all the farms and slam as much stuff in here as possible and make our money and move on. It just doesn't make sense. And so I appreciate you guys hearing from me, but I'm really radically anxious about this. And I would ask guys that if there's any way possible that this be shelved and continued, because I know a lot of people in the subdivision that would love to be here but just didn't have enough notice. And something this important, I don't think should be decided today. Leah Groby, also another real estate agent that's in the neighborhood, told me to say a couple things on her behalf as well. She had a closing she had to go to, and once again, not a tremendous amount of notice. Leah said the things that she is wanting to know. What is the next step in the process? What's the approval process? When houses do go up, do the HOAs prevent houses from turning into rentals, which diminishes neighborhoods as well? She would ask that she request R2 or R3 zoning, request an accident report on 13 from 800 to Fall Creek before any decisions are made. And she said those are her big concerns. My concern it would be the rental properties, because I think the comment that, people that are renters treat it just like homeowners. I felt like I was at the presidential debates, guys. I've never seen that, and I've been in real estate for a long time. That's ludicrous. That's called spinning. Sounds good, not the reality. Never seen that. I think something this important that's going to impact this many people really needs to be studied a little bit more. So that's what I had to share. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I would just like to reiterate to everybody that this would have to go in front of the drainage board. So any drainage issues would be looked into. That's not just going to happen. They have to go in front of the drainage board and seek approval from them. So I just wanted to put that out there to let everybody know that. And also,
that was done in the subdivisions that were built around Carmel too. We still have neighborhoods that are underwater when we have flooding. So the drainage board is great, but there still needs to be more comprehensive.
Also gonna be a trail.
We need to come up with a podium to speak, because we can't put this on the public record if we don't have a recording of it. So all comments, make sure you get up to the podium before we talk out loud. Thank you. Thank you.
Leslie, I had an email last night late from former Commissioner Paul Wilson, and since it was so late, I didn't have time to distribute it. And I told him, I emailed him back, just told him I'd read it into the record for him. So if you don't mind, I'll just read his letter. To the Madison County Commissioners and the Madison County Planning Commission from Paul Wilson, 216 East High Street, Pendleton, Indiana. First, I must apologize for forwarding this opinion via email instead of appearing in person before the commission. I am currently physically unable to attend. This correspondence is in reference to the proposed zoning change to allow another large-scale residential housing development to be constructed in Green Township. As I am a citizen of southern Madison County, opposed to any further residential or multi-housing development in the unincorporated areas of Green Township at this time, my reasoning is as follows. I believe in the year 2000, I was the South District County Commissioner, was involved in the approval of the large-scale development known as Summer Lake. During the rezoning process, I expressed a major concern about building that large subdivision without fire and ambulance protection, staffed equipment, and housed in that immediate area of Green Township. Green Township had no protection of its own and contracted with Pell, Ingalls, and Pendleton and Fortville for protection of what was then rural farm area. Subsequently, discussions were started with officials and the developers to resolve the emergency service issues. Voluntary impact fees were agreed to and collected, as well as a donation of land and infrastructure to build a fire station. Upon reaching the agreement and assurances of the establishment of emergency services and the building of the fire station, I supported the zoning change for the proposed development. That was 22 years ago with hundreds of residential units, a couple of thousand or better residents, and there's still no no fire station specific to this area of development. That clearly promises to get that done have not been made. I'm asking you not to approve any additional residential development in this area until there is a staffed, equipped, up and operating fire station in that area of State Road 13 and 800 South. Approve nothing until this requirement is fully satisfied. I believe lives depend on it. Thank you, Paul Wilson. So.
Yeah. Anybody? That's all you.
Sorry. Ann Corrigan, regarding the drains and going to the drainage board, which is great. Most of the field tiles that are out in the fields that are going to be torn up are not accounted for in that. In fact, I've watched them over the years go through and repair the field tiles because we had what my late husband was, his last name was Wilson. We called it Lake Wilson because it was right on the side of our property, and it would get really flooded so much that there was a flock of egrets in it. And then they finally corrected that drainage. Well, but if you cut that off, then where's the drainage go from that field tile? It's going to back up from where it was coming, which was part of the problem because it was broken over that way. It was flowing that direction. When I lived down in Fishers, we had a house next door. It was a big, huge house, about 5 acres. Built a beautiful house, but what they didn't realize, even though they obviously had to go through the drainage board, is that there was an underground stream there, and they built their house accidentally on top of the underground stream, and so when it rains, they have 6 sump pumps in their basement trying to keep it dry. So those are things that you can't necessarily see when you're talking about old farmland and the field tiles because they're just out there. And there's no record of them because they were laid so long ago. Sometimes the old farmers know where they might be and where they probably travel through, but how do you put that on a plan? How do you compensate for that? And then where is it going to go? It's going to head down the road because my road goes down. So it's going to head down that way towards Fall Creek. The other portion that I forgot to mention was that the number of vehicles also impacts. So we're not talking about just the vehicles that are already there on the roads that can't take it. But if you think of the number of housings and the number of apartments, we're looking at, what was it? Close to 400 houses, right? Well, empty nesters are each going to have 2 cars. The single families are going to have 2 or 3 cars, if not 4. And then each of the apartments has a 2-car garage. So that's another 2 cars. So whatever you have when you're talking about having the number of homes out there, you have to nearly triple the traffic because of the number of vehicles, because none of us have just 1 car. Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's comments. Mark's going to, I think, take most of it. One thing it was brought up about notice. Clearly, everybody knows that the county sets the notice requirements. We followed all the rules that were required for notice period timing. So certainly I just want to make sure that that's clear. We didn't decide how far in advance we have to notice people. We followed all the rules and just wanted to make that clear. Mark can now address some of the other things, and if he misses something, then I'll jump back in.
Thanks, Adam. Members Plan Commission, Mark Madison, Grassland Development. Appreciate your time today. Big crowd. Appreciate everybody's interest in the area and some good stories there and some good things to discuss for sure. I'm not going to try and hit every one of them and kind of repeat and rebut every single item for all of our time's sakes. But I think couple of the big things that we've heard, and I'll address some things generically and hopefully answer a lot of the questions, and certainly can answer any other questions that you may have. As it relates to traffic, road infrastructure, that is a big thing, and that has been the underlying tone of what we've heard today from a lot of these folks. And I think one of the important things to understand is that traffic studies by engineers like A&F Engineering or others that are out there will help all of us understand what needs to happen in the area from what effect our community would have on the roads. And then also from a global perspective, as Jessica told us yesterday, is that there's been discussions about having them do an overall for this whole southwest area, a study, so we can understand exactly what needs to happen. So the county understands it, Ingalls understands it, Fortville, all the others that are in the zone, will be able to get some of those answers once that has been completed. We would have a study done as well just for our area, which obviously would be a portion of the big study as well. But they've asked us, just in the last week or so to be able to engage that study. So we've already been in discussions with a traffic engineer to do that, and we'll continue on down that road. Development helps infrastructure, and there's things that, as developers, there will be things that we'll be responsible for. Trails. So one of the things required is to have a 8-foot or 10-foot, I don't know if it's which one it is, 10-foot trail on either side of 800 west as well as on our side of 800 south. So that will afford a better walking and a better bike path and a better community area for people to be able to walk safely in those zones. And that would get developed as we do our thing. We'll have A-cell, D-cell lanes. We'll have, thicker portions of pavement certainly in front of our area. And there may be other items that are out there. And the TIF that Neil mentioned from Ingalls would be something we'd be interested in talking about at the county level and seeing if there's a way to do that. Normally, when we have just a single-family residential development, we're not able to do a TIF. But here, since we have the apartments proposed, and if so approved, then that would afford us and the county the opportunity to explore that to see if we can't do some further improvements to the road system through that TIF program. As far as the water and sewer infrastructure, I think there is adequate water supply. There is a lift station that's not currently being used just south of our property. That is where all of our sewage will flow. It will not flow to the north, but it will flow south into that lift station, and we'll be providing pumps through our discussions with Mr. McCurdy that there'll be some talk about how those pumps get replaced and get that lift station operational. As far as the fire department goes and fire safety and emergency care, this first we've heard of that. We certainly would be open to having those discussions. And if we can find a spot that works for us, that works for the fire department and the county and emergency services, that maybe we can try to reconfigure our plan a little bit to make that work. If I would think that it'd want to be closer to 13 and 800, but if our site was a reasonable site, then we certainly would be willing to have those discussions as we move forward. One of the things that's, I think, important to understand is that this area, Green Township, is a desirable place to live. It's where people want to live. And there's going to be people that want to live on 2 to 5 acre, 10 acre, 20 acre or more farms. But there's also going to be the typical single family resident that wants to be there and wants to be closer to the outskirts instead of right inside town. And that's where, it's always a difficult spot when you have farm ground that's in the path of progress and is slated in a growth area in a comprehensive plan. It's always a tough thing, and we get that. But this area already has water and sewer to it. It has, has interstate access reasonable. It's going to be something that gets developed. We would like to be able to do it in a responsible manner and bring homes to it that are good quality homes that people are going to be happy to live in. And to address those for just a second, our empty nester lifestyle product, that's going to be probably over 40%, if not 50% of the single family homes that are built here, is totally maintained. And those folks are, in our history with this product over the last 5 years, we're seeing about 0.2, 0.3 kids per home on average. And that's an experience thing. We can't guarantee it, but of the 500 lots that we put on board in the last few years, that's what we're seeing there. The stats that we got from the Redwood Company are their stats from their experience. So that's 2/3 of the development. Generally speaking, won't have but a kid or two every once in a while. Again, we can't promise it, but that's from experience for what this product is geared towards. The rents in the apartment complex, this is not bottom barrel stuff. This is granite countertops, nice things. The people have stayed an average of over 2 years so far, but this company, even though it's had some experience, it's been in a growth pattern in the last 5 years. So a lot of new developments in this, and that includes those new developments that are only 6 months old or only a year old. So that stat will only get a little bit larger as we go. And generally speaking, if you look across the country, you see those folks stay for 3, 4, and 5 years at a time. So very low turnover once the community gets leased up. They do a nice job of it. We'll make sure that from the internal and from a development standards perspective, we coordinate with Jess on all those items. And that also then goes towards the drainage side of things as well. When we develop in farm ground, we do our best to find every tile we can. We'll have conversations with the Rayford folks to try and understand if there's anything else there that they have personal knowledge of. And if we hit a field tile, it gets connected into our drainage system, would be typical. Typical protocol for us and what we do. We do, as a development, adhere to state statutes on the rate of release. And as I'm sure you guys probably know, is that we're releasing it, 10% of what's currently being released off the site in a typical calculation.
Its own release
Yes.
rates that you'd have to abide.
Yes. And so,
Which are more stringent.
okay, and that's fine. So we'll abide by the current development standards that you have, and we'll make sure that, obviously different release rates for different types of ground conditions, and all those things get put into a drainage study, submitted to the county, and Jess and her crew, as well as then the drainage board. So those are all things that will be taken care of as we go through the process. As far as easements go, we'll have an easement along 800 both directions for sure that will handle the utilities such as water.
800 West.
800 West.
Yeah.
And
our side.
and our side of 800. Sorry. Yes, 800 South as well as 800 West will have easements in areas that we control. One of the things to note as well, as far as the rental goes, Redwood will own this property. It's not individual investors owning the property. So it is maintained. They have a property manager who lives on site. They have a leasing agent that is there full time. So it is a managed property, managed rental, if you will, instead of remotely being managed. In an area where we see new growth, and we are doing a lot of development in those type of areas. We're in Lebanon, we're in Whiteland, we're going down to Edinburgh, and we see these areas where they haven't seen a lot of growth recently, and now are getting this push. And it's a decision the community, in your case the county, needs to make. Is this something we want to do? And most other areas, we've been able to be successful and develop good parcels and have good relationships with staff, with county people, as well as neighbors when we do go into a community. We've been doing this for over 35 years now. This isn't our first rodeo.
So you say you have one in Lebanon, is that correct?
We have actually 2 in Lebanon right now.
So you could give us addresses and we could go
For sure.
check these places
For
out?
sure. Yes, we can do that. So, and some of them we do work with the different builders. We do a lot of work with Ryan Homes. We did Oakmont right down the street.
Are the Ryan homes similar in those Lebanon subdivisions as they would be here?
Yeah, in Lebanon, yeah, both products actually that we're proposing here are up there.
An empty nester product and a single family, they're across the street from each other?
What's the starting price on those homes?
So it's virtually the same.
It'll be a little more here because the lot prices are gonna be more
Yeah,
expensive here.
because those are 2 and 3 year old developments. Or at least we bought the ground 3 years ago.
The single family side is right around 250 and about 325, and I think we'll be higher here because
Yeah, I think it's
maybe
higher
even
than
higher
that
than
today.
that. But the ground, everything's got more expensive in the last several years, infrastructure and land.
And the empty nester product is it is a good looking product. As mentioned, we maintain it, so it's all fertilized and mulched the same day. And if people decide to put irrigation in, they can. We don't irrigate them as a standard, but about half the folks end up putting irrigation in along the way in their gardens and all that type of stuff that they take care of, and then we take care of the rest of it. And we will have an HOA that will plow the roads until further, whether there's a county or we go to Ingalls or whatever the case may be, but we'll take care of our snow plowing in the entire area. And then, obviously the walks and drives get done in the maintenance-free portion.
What's the HOA fee?
We go through a whole calculation. Generally speaking, we see in the empty nester product and the lifestyle product is about $140 a month, roughly. And in the since we'll have a pool with the other side of things, which again everybody can go to if they choose to, but that fee will be in the probably about $800 a year for the traditional single family product. And there was one comment about taxes and such. Most mortgage companies today escrow their taxes on the front side, so there isn't typically sticker shock like there maybe used to be back in the day when the rules could be bent a little bit with the way lending laws are today. Very difficult for the folks to, not very, but more difficult for them to do their own escrows at this point in time. So, and we'll abide by, work with Jessica's group when we get into development plans as far as road widths and all those type of things. Obviously, we'll have public sidewalks all throughout the neighborhood and such. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Just a couple more things. I do want to reiterate the fire thing. We've got some interest in some other land in that area. We are 100% willing to work with the county and the township on seeing if any of that ground could be used for a fire department, and be happy to have those discussions. The other thing with staff's recommendations, we deal with this everywhere where traffic is always a concern. It's a concern for us as well, which is why we employ traffic engineers to tell us and tell the county, tell Jessica, hey, here are the things that need to be done in order to have this development, keep the standards where they don't fall below where they currently are. And we work with staff to abide by those things and do what needs to be done. We're certainly not traffic engineers. It is a science. We've said it a million times. Traffic engineering is a science. It's not somebody throwing darts. The company we generally use is, I know Jessica's familiar with them. They do stuff all through the state for municipalities, very well respected group. And as part of staff's recommendation, if you forward this with a conditional or with a favorable recommendation, clearly one of those recommendations is that traffic study, and we're of course committed to that. So I guess we just ask respectfully you accept staff's recommendations other than the matching amenities on either side. That's number 4, and forward this to the commission with a favorable recommendation. We appreciate your time, and again, we'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Hi, I'm Stacy Hinton. I'm the board secretary. I have had a concerned citizen reach out online to me. 2 questions. One was the coverage for police out in that area, since it is in the county. They're asking about coverage for the more homes out there. And then they've also, have asked about a tax abatement. So I figured I'd forward those on to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't asked for anything like that.
Just a question.
Never have, honestly. So that's not something we would look into, other than.
Let me add one more thing. As far as timing of the development, I forgot to hit that. So more than likely, we won't have anyone living in this community maybe at the end of 23, but probably not until 24. By the time we get through design drawings, get through staff, get through the technical part of things, we're in moving dirt next year, and Ryan Homes typically, or they never do, build any spec homes per se. They'll build their models and then they start their sales process. So by the time they then start homes, it'll be 24 probably for the first residence, maybe if we're lucky, late 23. So it's not going to be 400 people showing up in 2023, 2024. Just make sure everybody understood that. So that should help as far as, especially if that improvement's going to be done at 13 and 800, that will help from that perspective.
Yeah, go on up. Over here.
Sorry, Greg Valentine again, 5297 South, 800 West. You're gonna have streetlights? Because that's what a lot of people are asking for.
Yes, we will have street lights laid out within the community in appropriate spots, such as intersections and ends of cul-de-sacs.
And you're paying the electric bill?
Well, it'll end up being an
Yeah,
HOA.
the HOA
expense.
will, yeah.
Yes, not a county thing.
Would you consider fencing the ponds? Kids are attracted to water, and I get calls all the time, Summer Lake, there's 15 teenagers out on that 17-acre pond, they're gonna drown. In the summertime, just recently, 2 little girls were pulled out of a pond in Indy. Just think about it. The other is, last I heard, my wife been off the South Madison School Board a term now, but 1.2 kids per house. That was the average in South Madison. And Maple Ridge was built for 450 kids, and the last count was 757. So East Elementary needs some more kids. They could ship them out there. The last question is, build as sold? You're going to build them as sold, or you're going to build a whole bunch ahead?
I'll answer all those at the same time, if that's okay. So as far as the built as sold, yes, these will be sold to individuals, not investors. So as someone comes through the door and is interested in a home, they'll design and build it with Ryan Homes at that point in time. They do not do spec homes, unless for some reason they had somebody cancel in the middle of a build. That would be the only reason why there'd be a spec home or a home built without a client. As far as the kids part of things goes, again, we have a lifestyle product that Maple Trails does not have, and then a lifestyle empty nester programming type of apartment home, if you will, that Redwood's doing. So we have stats on those from our past history, and it is from our experience, those items. There was one more thing that you asked.
Fencing the ponds.
Fencing the ponds, we'll consider that. Unfortunately, fencing the ponds makes it much more difficult from a maintenance standpoint, from cutting grass, as well as from maintaining the quality of the pond, getting to put chemicals in it. But erosion control folks don't like Roundup, so 2 sides of the fence there, so to speak. Okay, I think that was it. I thought you had one more item, but.
Hi, Heather Brock, Wignall again, 7912 West, 900 South Pendleton. I just wanted to pose a question to all of you. Where this location is it's well back from State Road 13. We're talking about lots of farmland that's around it still. And I heard the gentleman from Ryan Homes say that they're still looking at land in that area. So just a question to you guys to pose. This is an opportunity for Southwest Madison County to set a standard for what types of homes and what's going into that area. The impact to businesses in Pendleton, the impact to Ingalls and Fortville is definitely a consideration. And I would like that to be, mentioned as well. When it's just not about the number of houses, you've got the types of houses, and then you've got then you set a precedent for what is going to go around there. So very thoughtful consideration to this proposal is what I'm requesting in terms of community development, economic development. I mean, obviously we have the infrastructure concerns there too, but you don't get to go back and do this, and a long-term thought process on this. And I apologize, I've not looked at the long-term study that you guys have done, but I will be doing that. And the effect of what can be created in that section of Madison County for generations. Do we want Orion Homes there? Do we want starter housing there when we can ask for something more? So just wanted to put that out there for you to consider. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I'm Brenda Shaw. I don't normally speak out. Brenda Shaw. I would like to know, okay, we live on the same road out there, okay, 875 South. I got friends that have donkeys, goats, chickens. Are you guys gonna make us get rid of them if you let this happen? Horses, cows. You don't normally see 3 pigs running down the road, but by God, his did. But I mean, that is a concern of ours. Can't we just wait for this to be done another day? They can't be in that big of a hurry. Let us get a hold of our neighbors and get a group together.
Yes.
I'm begging you, just let it be another day. Let us have 3 weeks to get everything together. I'm just begging you. Thank you.
In order to have farm animals in the unincorporated area of Madison County, you have to have a minimum of 4 acres. Any buildings that are built that would house the farm animals must be 50 feet from every property line on your property. So if you have less than 4 acres, you could be asked to have your animals removed. Because the
And can you just please come up to the podium?
My question was, I have 100-year-old barns on my property that are 50 feet back because it used to be all the same property, and when they parceled it off, am I required to put up different barns for my?
No, you're not, because that is a building that was built before the most up-to-date ordinance was put in place. But if you are building a new barn, then your structure has to comply with the ordinance that was passed in 2002. Okay?
Rachel.
Yes. Okay, we need to have comments that relate to the development, and if we have to talk about farm animals and ordinance requirements, we can meet with you after the meeting to speak about those directly. So if there's any more public comment that relate directly to the development, we can take, I think, 2 gentlemen up. Do you have comments to make still?
Yeah, I do, but.
Okay, so come up to the podium, please.
What you just said. What did you just say about comments? What comments you want to hear?
They should be relating to our petition today. So if it was like the one that we just had about building setbacks for personal property, we can address those after the meeting. However, Liz was trying to just clarify that you are allowed to have farm animals if you are unincorporated Madison County. But they do need to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
Oh, looky here, I could turn the page.
Okay, and then is there another gentleman that had comments to make still? Or did he leave? Okay, this will be the last public comment that we'll receive then.
Okay.
We did have time for the public comment, and then there was a rebuttal, and typically we don't accept public comment after the rebuttal, so let's work on getting this up.
Okay.
Okay, let's do 2 quick comments, and then we need to
Okay.
continue moving forward.
My name's Keith Hart, and I live at 7579 West 900 South. Can we pull that up? The aerial map, if you would. Yeah, I'm gonna walk over here.
Yep.
That's good, right there. Up just a little bit. Yeah, right there, right there. A little more. I just want to give you the full effect here. Good, Mark Thompson. Right here. I live right here. So you see, was that me? That's you. No, I didn't touch it. You hearing it too, right? But anyway, we're all right here, and what they're doing is right up here. Okay? So this is a nice country neighborhood. You see all this over here, this, back in here, and way over here. I think we're just getting way too much air. Let me tell you why. This is a livelihood out there, and you don't have much of this left, Grizz. I want to know about it.
Where can you go out your front door? We don't have dog parks or sidewalks. We're country. You get done eating dinner, you walk around down the road with your dog, and the sun, the wind blowing, and not have to worry about getting run over by a car. If you keep putting that in like that, we don't want to drive to a park. That's our livelihood. Just live peaceful out there. There's there's kids that sell tomatoes on the side of the road. Yeah, we got some animals that run down the road once in a while. Where else are you gonna see that? We even got kids that ride bicycles. You put that in, that's all gonna be gone. And that's our livelihood out there. And it does upset me because I've lived out there for 30 years. Seen a lot of good kids raised out there. And just to even think why that could be put there, all that's self-contained, but all the traffic coming in and out of there is what's going to disrupt our country life. We even see the deer run through the fields and come, raccoons and all that, but it's just, and they talk about infrastructure, yeah, it's not there. I think this is way before its time. And I think with the Arbor homes and the rest of the homes going in is showing a perfect example of how congested and taking our livelihood away from us. And it's good for the ones that are already there, the kids. Over on the Arbor homes to the far right, they can walk to Maple Ridge. How many kids are going to have a memory where they could just walk to school? I'm just, if you take in consideration, come out and take a Sunday drive out there before you decide on this. I think they could put, what they're wanting to do, they could put somewhere that already accustomed to it. But thank you for your time.
Okay, this is our last public comment.
Hi, Leah Groby, 7915 West 900 South in the Little Circle. And I really just wanted to focus on 2 things, just to really plead for you all to give us a little bit more time. I spoke with Dr. Hall on Thursday, and he was unaware at that point in time. I think it's a little bit moving much too rapidly when the superintendent of the school doesn't even realize what's happening. We need to give everyone enough time to absorb what's happening and to be able to respond. In addition to an accidents report, I apologize, I had to leave for a few minutes, running around crazy today. But I know from 813 all the way to Fall Creek and 13, the children that have been flown in and hospitalized because of the accidents that they've been in, the bicyclers that have been hit. I mean, it was like 2 weeks ago, they closed the road down right before you get to Fall Creek on that hill because of an accident that I believe was fatal. So I think understanding the concept of what that traffic looks like, how many more people are going to be coming in there, not only to our school systems. And, you know, my children, thank God, will be out of Pendleton in 2 years. I've had 3 kids go through the system. They all went to Maple Ridge. And we went through the redistricting because Maple Ridge was so big at one point in time where the teacher's lounge was used as a classroom. That's what's going to happen again. And I know they have room to build. They have enough property at Maple Ridge and at the middle school to build. But let's let that happen before the classrooms are just going to bust with kids and the teachers can't handle it. And our school system, which is fantastic right now, ends up going all to hell because we can't keep up with what's happening. So I know it's going to happen. Just give it a time. Give it time to process and do it the right way. And allow these to be well thought out, not apartments, not, and again, I ask you to consider crime based on single family homes versus apartments and what that brings to our community. Is there a report based on that we can look at? So please, I'm just pleading with you for extra time. Thank you.
Okay, there's time now for the board to deliberate, and then you guys can consider making a decision on how to move forward. Just so everyone is aware of what the process is, the Plan Commission, just like the last petition, will make a recommendation to the county commissioners. The recommendation, again, Jeff, would be favorable, not favorable, or no recommendation. And there is also conditions that you may put on your condition if it is a favorable condition. If your recommendation, let's say it is a favorable with recommendations, and that goes to the county commissioners, and they want it to say something else, as in they want additional conditions, I believe they can add to it.
Or remove.
They can remove, but if they're removing conditions, it does come back to, either way, does it come back to
Yes, if they make
PC?
any,
Okay. If there's any changes to your recommendation on a favorable, it will come back to you and it will have to be reconsidered and then bumped back up to them again. Clear as mud? All right. Let me know if you have any questions about process.
There would be any. Can I ask Liz a couple questions, Wes?
Yeah.
About the staff report?
Yes. Let me give you a microphone now.
Liz, on your staff report, you mention, let's see, it's in your first finding, does the proposal comply with the comprehensive plan? We've heard testimony today that it does not meet the comprehensive plan and that it doesn't preserve agricultural land. That has been commonly brought up with citations. In here it talks about targeted areas for growth, and you mentioned that elsewhere in your report. Could you go into that a little more as to what is a targeted area, and is this area in a target area, and what that exactly means with regard to future compliance with the comprehensive plan?
I'll go into it as well as I can. As we all know that Indianapolis has been moving north over many, many years, and so the continued growth is going to happen. We did just do our comprehensive plan, and in this area, we're projecting growth to continue. I mean, it's kind of inevitable that it's going to continue to grow. Unfortunately, you know, there are farmers who don't want to farm, you know, as generations go on, maybe they don't want to continue to farm. Maybe they want to do something else. So in order for them to better suit their lifestyles, they may need to, I don't know what.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and help support Liz. I'm Jessica Basson, the county engineer. I apologize for being late to the meeting. As far as the targeted growth area, Jeff, when we read through the comprehensive plan, and I was not here when the comprehensive plan was originally drafted. I started about a month, I believe, before it was adopted. My reading of the comprehensive plan includes a number of different scenarios for growth within the county, particularly in the South Madison area. What the plan kind of dictates that it does certainly say about preserving agricultural farmland. I didn't see a specific area where it outlined which components. I think that it was the overall theme. It is, again, my interpretation of the way the plan is written. Additionally, it does target the South Madison area as an area of growth. Beyond just coming from Indianapolis, the Fishers area, the Noblesville area, that growth is certainly spreading. I think we've all seen that. We've all seen the impacts of the housing prices in the Pendleton area, and we're well aware of what that means. And so that would be the kind of the explanation of that phrase. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a couple comments and maybe a motion real quick too. I've got a meeting at noon that I've canceled twice because I was in the hospital and I really need to make this one. They had to drive in from out of town. I think a lot of the comments today, folks know and understand that growth is coming your way. You know, you may not necessarily like it, and it's, you know, not what it was 30 years ago, but it's going to go someplace, and obviously it's coming that direction. You're 100% right. The infrastructure the county has, and we know it, and we're working on it, is not what it should be. Wouldn't even pretend to argue with you about that. Hopefully a year from now, we have those impact fees in place that you're talking about, and the first part of that, like the phase one of the impact fees, will be in that particular area because that's where the growth's at. And so maybe we can get that on the table and finish up the rest of the county as we go, and maybe get it a little sooner. But that is in the works, along with a lot of other things that'll help us with the growth aspect in the county. But it's going to take time. That being said, I don't feel comfortable voting on this today. I've not been to one of their subdivisions that looks like this. I don't know what it looks like, what it feels like. I don't know whether it's good for us or not because I've not seen one. So I wouldn't feel comfortable voting on it until I drove to Lebanon and walked around and looked at your two places there. So that being said, I'd make a motion that we continue this until the next meeting. You provide us with some addresses so we can look at things, and then we've got time to ponder, you know, whether we think that we're adequately ready for another subdivision or not. It's my motion.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Second.
Who's seconding it?
Got two of them.
Mark.
Mark Gary, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Mark Gary?
Yes.
Denise Spooner?
Yes.
Lindsey Graham?
Yeah.
Tom Shepherd?
Yes.
John Richwine?
Yes.
Corey Bolander?
Yes.
And Wes Likens?
Yes.
Casey, you know the date off the top of your head for the next meeting?
Yes, it is August 9th.
August 9th.
So just so the public, that we're clear, this will be discussed again at the August 9th Plan Commission meeting. It starts at 8:45, and we will do our best to be on time on that one. Unlike this morning, we were a little behind. Okay. And the coffee cart, yes, check. All right. We are going to jump in on Drew's parts and give an update on that quickly. Jessica Baston and Mr. Healy from Banning Engineering, they were out on site on June 29th. That day, Kelly, Mr. Drews, still had the overflow pipe and seeding to be completed. On June 30th, I did discuss with Mr. Kelly that things were completed. I was not able to go out onto the site until July 7th. I did do a site visit with Mr. Richwine and Jessica Baston. From what I saw from planning perspective, everything appeared to be complete and finished at that point. So unless the Plan Commission would like to hire anyone else to go do a further inspection and do measurements and anything additional, we certainly can entertain that. However, from my perspective, the commitments that were made to be done are complete at this time. Except for that September 1st deadline that we still have for the parts and pieces that need to be removed from the site. Are there any questions? I will formalize that in a letter and make sure that I get that sent out to Mr. Kelly. Sorry, Mr. Drews. Kelly with his 2 first names. So that will get formalized in a letter. If there's any other action that the board would like me to take on it, I guess this is a time that we can discuss that and let me know if there's a different way that you would like me to proceed on that. Of course, Jessica's here. If you have any questions from the drainage board perspective, I'm sure she would chime in and give you guys an update on that as well. Yes.
Did you check on that drain on the MacArthur that was going across the street? How it was flowing?
So yeah, we've talked about this a couple times. From what we have seen out at the site, it appears that he has done what was asked of him by the drainage board. What we'll need to do is wait and see what, as this gets implemented and as the what the actual impacts are. And Tom, feel free to chime in. You've looked at this far more than I have, but from a bigger regional perspective, the drainage basin is quite a bit bigger than just the Drews Parts property. And so we suspect that it has a lot to do with the flow that's coming. It appears to be coming from Kelly Drews' site, but it's really from a basin on that. And so if that being the case, then that is more of an issue that the county highway and the county surveyor's office needs to deal with, not Drews Parts. It's definitely still on the radar. It hasn't gone away.
So, and this is both you guys on the drainage board then. I'd rather for us to start, I guess, put it to the forefront instead of being reactive and be more proactive when trying to get that corrected, so we won't have a whole bunch of erosion on that side of the road.
Sure.
We got on this side,
Right.
So, that's not, it's not Kelly's issue, but as far as the county issue.
A neighborhood issue, absolutely.
I think the county's wanting to do some work, aren't they?
Right. And what we've talked about doing is now that the Drews Parts work is done, we're working with the contractor to reestablish the drain along MacArthur Court, basically from the outlet of the Drews Parts site down and around. And that involves looking at what's there and what can be done there. I mean, the restrictions that we've got in that area right now. But getting that drain reestablished and then determining what is needed beyond that.
Do we have a timeline on that?
I have not talked to the contractor yet because I haven't gotten the okay from the drainage board. That'll be at the meeting on the 23rd, I believe, is the next drainage board meeting. We will be we'll be asking for their okay to contract with the or to engage the contractor to do the work. We have the costs, we have everything lined up. But as far as getting it onto their schedule, that can't occur until I get the okay from the drainage board.
Okay. Yeah, it went off. So can we get a copy of the scope of work that's going to be done on the drainage for the MacArthur Court?
For MacArthur Court, I can share that with you. Yes.
All right. Email that to me, please.
I can do that.
Other than that, I really don't have much. So we got a deadline now of September 1st to have all the equipment put up.
Yes, that's the next piece of the deadline.
Alright. Now, as far as the machines that I guess I get videos of machines that's been working out there. Kelly, want to talk on that the continuous work that has been done on there? Or, you know, it might be some stuff you might be adding to it to help. You want to speak on that?
Kelly Drews, 705 East School Street. And what machines are you talking about, Lindsay?
I had I guess an email with some machines that was working, like pulling dirt away or something, some backhoes or something. I didn't even look at the full email.
Some backhoe.
Yeah, over there by the lake where you just put that lake at.
Well, there's a few machines out there that we're pulling out of there to take up to get rid of.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only other machine out there would be where we put all the dirt from the pond. We have trying to make it look nicer and make a mound out there and just kind of manicure it up and dress it up. So
that's what I was talking about. So you guys are still like just doing like, I guess, beautification.
Yes.
Things.
Yeah,
okay.
Beautification. Yes.
All right. All right. That's all I had.
So September 1st, I came in and said before, I don't see it. I mean, we had the date for December 31st or whatever, and that can be met, but I still don't see September 1st getting the whole machines all in the building.
I think Jessica and I and Rachel and Jeff Healy was out there, I think we'll all agree that they did a nice job. To me, I think they did a well job.
I agree. I think the commission, if you guys, obviously you have some options. I mean, I think the last time that we met and we were talking about the September 1st deadline, Mr. Drews indicated he didn't think he could meet that. You did say that we would look at, the progress that had been made. Of course, you guys can change a deadline if you think it's necessary or something you would like to do. Or I think another way you can go, you can tell them no. You can also ask for more progress to be made, and then you can consider it extending that deadline at a later date as well. So I think you definitely have some options on how you want to handle this moving forward, or how you could handle this moving forward.
The second part of that email, I think that Lindsay was talking about, had also made comment that you were still taking in equipment. If you're supposed to get rid of it, are you still taking in equipment to part
We
out?
still bring in equipment, fix it, and then start. And the new ones that have came in, they are going to the front area where those machines will be going into the building. Because right now there's a few machines out where Lindsay was talking back to the west of the pond area. There's some machines out there, number maybe 10 or so, and those are getting pulled up front, getting cut up, so then everything will be confined to the one area, and then once those, which would be the northeast area, then those will go into the building, and I'll have the whole machines in under roof.
And just, if you're still taking in equipment, it's making it harder on you to try and get rid of it. I don't know.
True.
Still,
I mean,
it's part of your business. I get it.
World don't stop.
I know
Stuff
it
going around.
doesn't, and it's part of your business. I understand that, but I'm just trying to.
That's what I talked before about.
Deadline.
Yeah, that's what I talked before. What I said before. But before it would be like we take in pretty much any. I mean, bring it in, we'll scrap it, whatever, or take it to the scrap yard and do that. But now it's just pick and choose. You take your best ones and you let the rest of them go.
Well, we still have July and August, so you can see how much work you get done. And I would just encourage you to hire extra help and work hard, see what we can.
6 days a week, so we do right now.
So evaluate it later. My suggestion is we evaluate it later. Just keep.
There's only one more evaluation, so I mean, because August is coming up and there's September 1st.
Well, impress us in August, Mr. Drew.
So have you been out there to see it?
I've been driving by.
Okay,
yes.
and?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of improvement there, but I'm just trying to keep you on this deadline of September 1st.
It's not going to happen. I already told you that.
I mean, when he set it for the 31st of December, that was doable, okay? And I mean, in the progress we made and the stuff we've taken out to the scrapyard and all that, it's been significant and for us better off in the long run. But to get that all in by September 1st,
Or we can see how much you've been able to get in September, and then maybe we don't need to go to December. Maybe it's October, maybe it's November, but, you know, I just would like to continue to see a lot of improvement. So just keep working hard, and we can look at it next month. At least give us one more chance to evaluate the effort.
So will you put that on the agenda next month? Then?
I would suggest you go out and drive around and look at it today.
I agree.
And then that way we got something to.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I go by there, you know, when I come in and go, I drive by all the way coming into Anderson on my way home.
I mean, well, otherwise we don't have any way to evaluate if we don't.
I come by there and today was a long day.
Lindsay, could you do a little video and send us?
I'm sure there's plenty of videos. You should probably have them all.
I want it from Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Lindsay.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you.
Rachel, I'm hoping you tell us that's it.
That's it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, wait till you get up here.
I know. I can speak loud as I go.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark Tompkins, I live at 15 MacArthur Court. Regarding the ditch work that Jessica mentioned and everything, who's footing that bill? Is that the county or is that Mr. Drews? Because I thought there was a point of reference on that in a prior meeting or something like that.
As part of the Drainage Board approval, one of the contingencies was that Mr. Drews would foot the bill for the work down to the intersection of MacArthur and...
Flintwood?
Yes, thank you, Flintwood. My brain was not working there for a second. The county will handle any work on Flintwood.
Okay. And yeah, I do agree Mr. Drews has done quite a bit back there and everything. A couple of concerns I had, and I'm not picking on anybody, I'm just stating whatever. Where the pipes are at the drain, it was my thought from looking at the site plan, there should have been cement culverts on that side, on the west side of the pipe, not the east side so much. So I don't know if that's something that, you know, is not required or anymore or what, you know?
It's not That's not a requirement of the Drainage Board. That's homeowner preference. So in this case, I can't speak to that right now because I don't have the plans in front of me, and I didn't do the drainage review on it. That was done by Banding Engineer. I can certainly add that to my list to check with them on as they do the as-built review, but that's probably more of a Drainage Board issue.
Okay, and the other thing I have, as far as the safety concern, is the inlet to the pipes. There's no caging there or whatever to keep anything from...
I would say the same to that. Those would be Drainage Board concerns that I could pass on to Banding to check on in their review of the final as-built submittal.
And they would give recommendations if they saw something.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing, and it's not been touched on here, I know you have filed a violation with them, and you said that Mr. Drews has applied for something. I don't know what exactly you applied for that probably precipitated all, you know, that conversation, whatever. But my understanding is you're wanting to take it to a general industrial location, or force him to zone it to the general industrial?
My violation letter stated that I thought he was out of compliance with the uses that are allowed in his zoning district. So I told him, so my violation letter states that that needs to be addressed. The way that he wants to move forward on having that addressed is up to Mr. Drews. At this point, he has appealed my violation letter.
Understand.
And so we're going to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then they will make a decision on whether or not my violation is something they support. Or that they interpret the ordinance the same way as I do. So if they interpret the ordinance the same way as I do, then Mr. Drews has some pathways forward. He can apply for a rezone for his property to get his use in compliance with the ordinance. He can stop running the business there and doing that use there. And then if there is something else that his attorney may suggest, there could be other pathways of moving forward too. But, at this point, there's been a violation letter issued on the use on the property. That use or that violation letter has now been appealed and will be going to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And that's on the 28th?
I believe
Somewhere like
so.
that.
Thank you, Stacy. Yes.
The what?
Fourth Tuesday.
I will be out of town, but, yeah, my concern with that is that, and I'm just stating the consensus within the neighborhood is that very concerned about this being zoned to general industrial, because that can open up pathways in the future. If Mr. Drews decides to vacate or he went out of business in 10 years because metal business was just not profitable anymore, that since it's already, if it gets zoned as a general industrial, that someone could come in there and say, well, I want to buy it. I want to put a landfill in there, and they switch the special use to a landfill. That becomes extremely concerning to the neighborhood.
And you have an opportunity to speak those concerns if he does file for a rezone and go to a rezone meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say, this is one where there was an application for a building permit, and in my review of that building permit application, I look at the land use and I look at the zoning, and that's where that popped up as a red flag for me. I think that, as you're saying that you have concerns with it being rezoned to an industrial type use, if I were on Mr. Drews' side of this as well, that I would be concerned that I could have neighbors complaining about having a salvage yard next door that isn't in compliance with the ordinance, that he is at risk on that hand
Actually,
too.
I think that has been established.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be in here fussing like we have for the past 2 years or whatever.
Right.
And I'm not trying to keep Mr. Drews out of business or whatever. I don't want you to think that, Kelly. I just want everything done right. But, I want him to be able to do what he does. I want us, just like you heard the whole 4 hours or 3 hours already, we want to be able to live on our properties the way we've lived for the last, in my case, 56 years. I'm only one of about 3 or 4 legacy property owners in the neighborhood now, or legacy families. And, we want to be able to live. We want to have the peace and quiet. We don't want to have these other things opened up to us, And, when you look at the general industrial rezoning, one of the things that I heard coming up today is whether that's even within the comprehensive plan for the county, or does it go against the comprehensive plan for the county? And personally, I got to go back through and read that. I have not.
Yes, and
read
you
that.
should, but this is something that will get discussed if he does. We're kind of prematurely talking about this.
I understand. I
because
just
it
want
is-
clarifications.
Yeah.
I'm going to be gone for.
So you'll be gone for the appeal meeting. However, after the appeal meeting, after a decision is made on which direction this is going, then you'll have more information on what you need to do your research on.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fair game.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
My comments coming.
Okay. I have no more business.
I make a motion to adjourn.
The motion second. All in favor, aye. There, I'm hitting that.
I tried to do it.
Better in the back room now. Thank you all. Appreciate you letting me know.
Oh.
Nice job, guys. It was great.
Holy cow. The cool thing about all those people, they all